All right. Hello and welcome. This episode is the first step. Go ahead and get into it, then we'll roll our opening and jump right in. Thank you for tuning in. Right. Hello and welcome. Uh-oh. We have some feedback issues. Stand by. There we go. That's better. It's been a while. All right. So, again, thank you for tuning in, watching today. I know this isn't my usual stream time. Let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? So you think you've got it all figured out, a job, a plan, a worldview that makes sense. But what if you didn't choose any of it? What if the life you're living was handed to you, the beliefs, the routines, even the goals? What if the certainty you're so proud of is the very thing keeping you from growing? This isn't about breaking down who you are, it's about finally meeting yourself. Welcome to the first step. right, welcome back. Let's go ahead and jump in. We do not have a panel at the moment, which is fine. This is not our usual streaming time, so we're kind of winging it today. And by winging it, it took a few weeks, probably since the last show, to really develop something here that I think you guys will have a lot to take away with. Let's go ahead and get into it without any further delay. So the first part we're going to talk about is the comfort trap. Okay? Comfort is one of the most deceptive states a person can find themselves in. It presents itself as peace, as success, as emotional regulation. But it is often the silent killer of ambition and self-transformation. The comfort trap is that lull in your life where things feel good enough to stop questioning, challenging, or stretching yourself. You may have a decent job, maybe even a stable relationship, and a set of habits that you keep afloat. But floating isn't flying. The issue is that comfort becomes sedative. It numbs you to deeper dissatisfaction, deeper curiosity, and deeper purpose. Most people will stay in an unfulfilling, lifelong state longer than they should because it is familiar. Some people never leave. And in that familiarity, they forfeit evolution. Why am I addressing this today? Well, that would have to go back to 2015. That's not when the red pill philosophy came about, but is when I started to adopt it. And what I've noticed over the years is something very consistent. There is a set of beliefs, dogma, and doctrine that keeps people tuning into my show and other shows like mine. And what's the consistent pattern that I see in those shows? It's simple. It's a constant repetition of scenarios. This is why you should never marry single moms. This is why you should never marry at all. This is the top 10 talking points about how women in modern society are awful. And it goes on and on and on. I think we've addressed that issue to the point of beating a dead horse. And it has its merits. I've said this, I started this journey of transitioning from one point of talking to another for about a year now. You want to go back? There are 2 episodes, Re-examining the Red Pill and Beyond the Red Pill. This is where that shift starts. And then you can see later episodes, if you'd like, Become a Monster. Look into that one. Watch that one as well. In those videos, I have stated repeatedly that the Red Pill, MGTOW, Manosphere movement is part of the journey, not the destination. And I think one of the biggest detriments, and quite frankly, what is holding a lot of men in this space back, is the movement itself. Now, before you go crazy, I will say there's a lot of value. There's a lot of information. There are statistics, talking points, data, information that are true. The statistics on divorce are valid. Modern culture, modern society, 1 in 10 women being on OnlyFans under the age of 30 now, very accurate information. The likelihood, the Book of Numbers by Aaron Clary, of you finding a successful relationship, valid. But it's the journey, not the destination, that matters, right? So many people are stuck thinking this is it. This is the destination. I've been through all this. This is where I am now. And that creates comfort, which in turn becomes the trap. Let's continue, shall we? We tend to mistake external markers of stability, like income, a home, a relationship, for real growth, real inner growth. Take, for example, you have been through everything you've been through. I don't know your story. Maybe you were cheated on. Maybe women have always turned a blind eye to you and you've never even had a chance in the dating market. Maybe you were divorced. She got custody of kids. You were alienated from your own family. Lots of examples may be true to you, more than one. Or maybe none of these apply to you and it's something completely different. The issue is we find ourselves coming into this space, this community, which again has its merits. But a lot of us see it as the destination, the final answer. This is it. Well, because I've been through all of this is how it is. And now that I have the answer, this is where I'm going to set up camp. No, my friends, it was never meant to be your home. This is a place to visit. And I think it's very important that I say that. Does that hurt my views? Sure. If you take these philosophies to heart, it hurts every content creator in this space's views. Because at some point, you'll outgrow those views and you won't need this content anymore. And that should be the goal. You look at redonkulous.com. His goal isn't to tell you every single day the same points, right? His goal is to save men's lives. What do we do beyond that? I absolutely value what Pop does on his channel. But what do we do once we save those men's lives? Where do we go from there? Are we really selling them the cure? Or are we keeping them in a feedback loop? And what is the cure? Well, in my opinion, the cure is to take the philosophy, the red pill, the medication, to internalize it, to adopt it as part of your life, to know the risks, and to then move on anyway. See, that's part of life. When we get comfortable, we get complacent. When we get complacent, we become stagnant. When we become stagnant, there's no room for growth. I think it's very important, no matter who you are, what phase of this journey you're in, that you recognize that. This is simply a place to rest. Think of it like a video game, right? The weary traveler scene where you have the camp set up and you sit by the fire for a minute. Revitalizes you, brings your health back, gives you rest. That's what this is. That's all it should have ever been meant to be. Let's go further into this. A lot to take on. For real inner growth, but often those external we tend to mistake markers of stability like income, a home, a relationship for real inner growth. But often those external markers are masks we wear to avoid confronting how emotionally underdeveloped and unfulfilled we really are. True growth happens in tension. I can't tell you how many times that is true. Where I have found the most growth in my life in the last few years is when it was absolutely a stressful situation. Where it was make or break, where either you're going to do this or you're not. And I think it's important to remember that again, you can't find that in comfort and complacency. If you're not challenging yourself every day, there is no room for growth. If you're not being pulled in a new direction, if you're not experiencing some version of psychological friction, you're likely stuck, even if everything on the surface appears fine. People often pursue comfort because it feels like a reprieve from the chaos of the past. But a life defined by avoidance becomes a life that lacks meaning, and we start building identities around avoiding challenge rather than overcoming it. The most dangerous belief system we can carry are the ones built out of pain. Does this start sounding familiar now? We construct entire worldviews to keep reliving our worst moments. I can't trust anyone, as an example. Getting close to people always ends badly. Another Good example. Some people say things like, I'll never be enough. I've heard in this space, on my own panel, things very similar to this. These are not truths. These are trauma-formed defense mechanisms that calcify into beliefs when left unchallenged. They feel like wisdom, but they're really just fear with a good PR team. You wear them like armor, but over time they weigh you down, and what once protected you now keeps you isolated. Audience, I'm going to challenge you. Do you feel isolated? Just ask yourself. You don't have to post it in the chat. This is something for you to think about. Has this armor, these philosophies, this doctrine, these ideas, have they brought you more happiness and peace? And if so, that's good. Or have they stopped you, stunted you, and halted you from furthering yourself? It's a question that many people in this space don't ask. That's why I'm asking you. This isn't meant to be a comfortable conversation or one of these streams where we goof around and waffle for several hours. No, I really want to challenge you. Do you feel at peace? Do you feel complete? Do you feel like your life has meaning? Do you have a sense of purpose? Are you pursuing your passions, your desires, your wants? Or are you just living day to day? Again, you don't have to say anything in the chat, but it's something I want you to think about after this. Let's talk about this. The victimhood loop is another byproduct of unresolved comfort. It's a space where people no longer talk about what they went through. They live there. The story of betrayal or abandonment or loss becomes their personality. It becomes the justification for why they don't try anymore. And worst of all, it becomes justification for why they don't change. The loop keeps spinning because it's familiar, because it lets you escape accountability. We talk about women lacking accountability in the space. We don't really talk about ourselves, do we? But it also traps you in a narrative where you're powerless, and nothing grows in that soil. Again, if you're so focused on what hurt you versus how to overcome that hurt, I won't name any channels here today, but there are channels out there whose sole focus is reacting to TikTok or YouTube videos of women behaving badly. And that, my friends, is a feedback loop. That's keeping you with a cognitive bias that presents you only the information you already know and reaffirms that that is all there is. But I hate to tell you, we might all be wrong. Statistically speaking, we might be right. Case study-wise, we might have the information correct. But it's not the be-all, end-all. These are, again, statistics, but statistics aren't the whole story, right? The statistics point out the probability. But here's the cool part. You don't have to be a statistic. You don't have to fall into the trap. I mean, you have all the tools in front of you. Let's just get straight to the point. A lot of you watch this content because you were hurt by somebody you loved at one point, who you thought loved you. And that hurt sucked. And you came into our space, and you probably started in the therapist section of it, or the pickup artist section of it. Some of you did, not all of you. And in that thing, it was how to get my girlfriend back, right? And they talked about the no contact period and all that. And you're like, yeah, this is kind of bullshit. Didn't work, right? And then you find channels like Kevin Samuels or Redonkulous or whatever, and you start seeing all of the truth. Hypergamy, female nature, all of that. We tend to lack accountability in the aspect that we created this environment. Men will talk loudly about how we built everything around us. And it's true. We did. I don't discount that at all. But we also built the problems that created these statistics to begin with. We don't really talk about that, do we? It's not commonplace. And in some regards, where I challenge you, where the viewership may drop off for this episode, and that's fine. How are we behaving any better than the examples of the opposite sex we're showing? When week after week, we show up, we complain, we cry, we don't do anything to hold ourselves accountable, and we move on. Point in case here. She cheated on you. That's fine. That's on her. She made that decision. That rests solely on her shoulders. She could have ended the relationship. Lots of things she could have done. She could have been a moral and ethical person and not pursued extracurricular activities, right? But she did. What we often don't talk about is what we as men did wrong. What led to that? Was it distance? Was it lack of time, lack of attention, lack of care? Did we put our goals above that relationship too much? Oh, no. You should never put a woman on a pedestal. I'm not saying that. Always focus on your goals first. But some men take this doctrine way too black and white. There's a time that in a relationship, you can set aside a moment for your partner. You can set aside a moment to show some kind of emotion to her, right? And a lot of this space talks about, well, the second you do that, game over. Yet I've seen so many instances where men follow masculine frame completely to a fault, black and white. Never show her emotions, always be focused on frame, never give her anything, always distant. Yeah. How many of those relationships lasted long term? Not many. It's a balancing act, gentlemen. It really is. You have to know how those dynamics work, which is the point of this space. But then you have to know when is too much and when is too little. And if you're so focused on masculine frame and who you are and your goals and your purpose and your drive, but you're never filling her pot at all, there's a good chance that that won't work out. I think we've long forgotten that, right? Now, statistically speaking, there's a lot of women that don't deserve your time. They don't deserve any of what you could offer them. That's true. But that's not always true. That is a truth, not the truth. And that's something I think gets washed up in this mess too. The universal truth is all women are going to she's just yours. Or she's not yours. It's just your turn, right? How many times have we heard that in this space? Are you not manifesting that if you believe that? Are you not identifying only the women that are like that? Are you may not seeking them out subconsciously because that's your belief system? Just something to think on. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens through discomfort, confrontation, and risk. Every transformative moment in your life likely came at the edge of fear, not the center of comfort. If you aren't regularly putting yourself in spaces where you're uncomfortable, uncertain, or stretched, and you're not just avoiding pain, you're avoiding the next level. And that avoidance may feel like peace, but it's really just stagnation in disguise. And it's true. I can give you stats, data. We can do a 4-hour episode breaking down why you should never get married. We've done it. Go back and watch the episode with Crowder as a thumbnail. Like divorce case study or something. I can't remember the title. You'll see it. Just go through my live shows about a year ago, and you'll see Crowder's face on there. If you want to know statistics, I've got them for you. If you want to know your odds, I can show those to you as well. But again, those are truths, not the truth. There are statistical anomalies. There is a probability that if you step outside your comfort zone, you may actually find what brought you here to begin with. You may find the thing that you hoped for, that you lost hope in when you came to channels like mine. And you might find it in the least suspecting places. That's a choice. You don't have to do that. I can't tell you to do that. A lot of people watching this right now probably won't want to do that. Deep down, they're comfortable. But comfort is the enemy of growth. So I caution you on it, but that choice is yours to make. Audience, I do have some questions for you. Please answer the question with the question, as I have a few for you in this. Where in your life have you mistaken comfort for growth? When you answer that, if it is complete and I know which question it is, I will post it on the screen and respond. So again, where in your life have you mistaken comfort for growth? Give it a second and type that in if you want to. Again, we're light on audience today, so if the audience is not as receptive to replying, that is okay. But I do want to give it the offer to engage with you guys. All right, next question. And you don't have to answer all of these either. Pick the one or two that you like. Are you calling something success just because it looks stable on the outside? So again, are you calling something success just because it looks stable on the outside? And then there's a third question. What belief do you carry that was born from fear, not fact? That's one I definitely like to see somebody touch on, even if it's the comments after the show. If down below in the comments section, if you're not watching this live, that one I do want to know about. What belief do you carry that was born from fear, not fact? Here's another good one. What's the story you keep repeating that no longer serves you? Just a question. I could elaborate. What's the story you keep repeating that no longer serves you? All right. Last question. And there's a few good ones here. What part of your life have you kept small just to avoid discomfort? Interesting word choice on that, though. What part of your life have you kept small just to avoid discomfort? Now, what do I mean by small? Well, maybe you haven't reached out for that promotion. Maybe you haven't taken that risk with somebody you were interested in. You didn't pursue it. You kept it small. You're good with being a cashier. You're good with just being friends with this person, whatever, right? What part of your life have you kept small just to avoid discomfort? Let's look at the chat here for a minute. All right. Looks like we actually have some good stuff in the chat here. Here we go. I am putting some of them on the screen. You guys can read them. And I'm not in exile. I've had a lot going on. Some of these comments are funny, but I'm not going to read them all. All right. Shadowhunter 17. I have come to the red pill looking for solutions, not just data. My concern is the society we are now in does not have solutions for men like me who want family, but are not seen as enough. I'm going to challenge you on that. I'm not saying I have the answer for you, but I have a perspective change for you. Is it society that doesn't see you as enough? Or is that one of the walls you put up in your life and convinced yourself to be true that is holding you back and convincing you you're not enough? I know I've done it. I've done it many times. But again, comfort is the enemy of growth. So if you're stuck in a state where you believe society doesn't think you're enough, you internalize that. Where was that thought born from, too? Did it come from society, or did it come from you after experiencing something traumatic? Looks like I do have a panel member, so we will get to the panel prompt, too. This should actually be a fun one. If you are on the panel in the backstage, stand by. I'm actually going to do the panel prompt after the chat, so here we go. Lou, last name. I'm going to put you up on screen here. At 50 and been through enough shit, I just think we live in a simulation. And I just want a couple $1 million to escape the Matrix. The world feels like it's ending soon. Too much macro stuff going on. You know, I could see that. I think I've said it a few times myself. We're living in a simulation. None of it feels real. Everybody's chaotic. It just seems unnatural. You know what I think it is? And this is just my opinion. This isn't a fact. This isn't a truth. This is just an opinion. I think we're on a cycle. Again, I get back to, I think it's Robert Burke who wrote it, The Eye of the World. And in that, he talks about a wheel with 7 spokes extending out on it. And those 7 spokes represent periods in time. This actually can be, if you dive into the lore of Lord of the Rings, you can see the same thing. There's a time of peace. There's a time of contention. There's a time of war. There's a time of famine. And it goes on a cycle, right? We've actually talked about this in episodes before as well. In the real world, about 85 years-ish, give or take, the world goes from great prosperity to war. And then we can look at the average civilization, and its lifespan is about 300 years. It's cyclical, in my opinion. So not so much a simulation, but maybe more or less we're at the end of a dark chapter. But here's the good news. At the end of every dark chapter, there's a good chapter to come. Usually right after the worst time period, there is a period of prosperity and peace. So maybe it is a simulation. I'm going to choose not to believe that for now, even though I've stated it in the past. I think a lot of my belief systems I've challenged a lot in the last 6 months to a year. And you can see that in the show. The show has evolved, the show has changed, and that's okay. That is growth. That is evolution of your own belief systems. It's okay to change your mind. I think I'd be more worried if I saw somebody that never changed their mind. That would concern me. If somebody doesn't question their own beliefs or question beliefs in general. Let's see. Go to Riggs Jr. I came in and learned that there's what there is to learn, got my rage over with, and hang around for the brotherhood. Now, see, that I like. There is nothing wrong with that. The community that we do have here, the friendships that I've formed, Riggs, for example, a lot of you guys are friends with me on social media. Some of us have met in person. Not all of us. I'd like to change that. I'd like to meet all of you guys at some point. But yeah, that is something that I will never speak ill of. The community, the friendships, the bonds. I can't tell you how many times after we get done with a live show and we're still talking for 5 hours afterward. You know, that right there makes this worth it. So that is a good comment. That is a fantastic comment. What's he say here? Briggs Jr. adds, I've just seen too much to run my ass back to the plantation. No one said you had to go back, man. That's the interesting thing that I'm starting to realize. There is a plantation. There definitely is. But and this is my caveat here, there's something beyond this that is not on the plantation. And it still has a happy ending. And not from the massage parlor. But there is a happy ending outside of this, I promise you. The plantation is societal norms. But there are people like us. Think about this. There are people like us. We challenge narratives. We question reality. We sought uncomfortable truths, right? We're not alone. We're not the only ones. And I want to add to this, there are people that are not on the plantation that didn't participate in the nightmare that is modern society. They're still out there every day. Some of them have been through hell and back. Some of them have learned valuable lessons. Some of them have been broken and hurt like most of us. But here's the thing. There are still people out there in this world that are not reflective of the bullshit that brought us here to begin with. I promise you that. Now, finding those people is never easy. Why do I say that? Because people like that are often like us. We're not out in the streets. We're not out at the clubs. We're not out at the bars. We're not out. We're focusing on our lives. We have our communities, our groups of friends, our jobs, and that is it. You're not going to find these people just, they're not going to walk up to you and slap you in the face and be like, hey, you're like-minded. It's not going to happen. But there is something beyond the plantation, I promise you. I promise you. And that may be a topic for a future episode because I want to do a deep dive on that too. But maybe we'll get there. All right. Lou last name, good point. I think it also can serve as reinforcement as well. Hang on. I'm multitasking here quite a bit. Let's put this up on screen. Riggs Jr. Lou, yeah, newer chick video just show we made the right choice. Don't get angry over the new chick vids. I just go, yep, they ain't changed. So I haven't personally seen that. And I'm not going to answer that call while I'm doing a show. Sorry. About to turn off the phone. It can wait. It's my day off. I'm not going to be interrupted. They can text us if it's an emergency, right? All right. Let's go into this. I don't know what these new chick videos are, so I can't relate to you guys on that one. Haven't seen it, so I don't know. Let's see. Lou last name. When they cheat, we blame ourselves rather than understanding that they are inherently broken and it would have happened no matter what. There is that. But also, I mean, yes, I can see where you're coming from, where we blame ourselves. But that's not always the case. A lot of the times we look at that person and see that they're broken, but we don't see what we may have done or actions we took that led to it as well. Now, there is no excuse for cheating. I'm not excusing that behavior. But a lot of times there is something lacking. Let me give you an example just briefly. Emotional cheating, for example, which is where somebody starts texting somebody else or talking to somebody else, maybe a coworker, something like that, right? That typically happens when there's a lack at home. Now, I'm not saying it's your example. I'm just saying it's an example. When there's a lack of that emotional fulfillment at home, that's where your monkey branching starts developing. She's missing something. And I'm not saying that's every case, once again. But there is a point to reflect on that, because when we can identify our faults in these situations, we can grow as individuals to never have that happen again. Now, if you dated a cheater, you dated a cheater. There's no changing it. But what steps can we take in the next relationship, if we pursue one, to not have our faults brought to the table? Obviously, what was done to you was not right, unfair, and unjust. But what can you do in the next relationship, if you choose to have one, to avoid any of the mistakes or traps you fell into with your behavioral patterns that may have caused the initial first steps of it, right? So again, there's accountability on both sides. Do we blame ourselves? Well, yeah, I mean, I've done it. But what do we do with that versus I did this so that happened, or it's all my fault, or I wasn't good enough? Take a step back from all of that, especially when you're far removed from it, and go back and go, okay, on this day that happened, and on this day I kind of screwed that up, and this day I kind of ignored her. Yeah, little things. You pick those up and go, all right, those were my issues. Obviously, what she did was just stupid and beyond forgiveness, right? But these are the steps I could have taken along the way. Would she have still cheated? Maybe. But this is how I can be better going forward. That is overcoming versus staying complacent in those beliefs, right? I do hear a lot of men say, I didn't do anything wrong. I don't know about that. Takes two. Takes two. Again, not excusing the behavior of the cheater. Okay. Got a couple more chats to look at here, and then we'll get to the panel member that I have backstage. Lou last name says, all that frame and game stuff is BS. It can only last so long. Just need to be yourself. Yes, I'm going to point something out. Maybe I'll just be personal about it. If I would have held masculine frame, actually, I can tell you, I was in a relationship. You guys know this. I've never been very public about it, but I was in a relationship for the last few years that I held frame, that I was very distant, that I was very cold, that I was very on my purpose, and I wasn't affectionate, I wasn't romantic, I wasn't any of those things. And wouldn't you know it, I'm not in that relationship now. Now, there were some other issues underlying. We learned from my mistakes. I actually ended it myself. I was the one that said, you need to go. Because there was a lot of things that just over time were chipping away and became too much. Irreparable. Wasn't the worst relationship I ever had. But I realized it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't aligning with my core beliefs. It wasn't aligning with where I was going in life. It wasn't aligning with who I am. And you know what? Interestingly enough, I was very good at keeping frame. I was very good at being distant. I was very good at being on my purpose because she wasn't fulfilling my needs either. She wasn't soft. She wasn't kind. She was, but not in the way I needed. And that's okay. That's okay. She might be good for someone else. She wouldn't have been good for me long term. For example, I still believe in the idea of potentially, really going to sound radical coming from me, but I still believe in the idea of family. She didn't. Never wanted kids. Anytime we were in public and there were kids around, she always had a comment to make. I'm like, and it was a negative comment, is what I mean. I just didn't like it. And then there were some things to try to knock me off my frame that happened a few times. She'd do the whole arguing thing and then, well, maybe I'll just leave. And of course, I faltered instead of saying, no, just go ahead and pack your bags. I tried to keep it working and everything. That was my mistake. But the last 3 times it happened over the last period of, 6 months to a year, I said, how soon can you be out? You want to go tonight? Maybe not my proudest moment, but that's where I was at. I checked out. I stayed in here. She stayed in the other room. It became that kind of dynamic, right? Wasn't a good relationship. Wasn't terrible. There were good moments, but it just wasn't the right fit. But I want to get to my point. If I would have held this masculine frame, I would have never met who I met, and I would never have the dynamics I have now with that person. I actually had a big eye-opener in that situation, which again, I can touch on in the future. But I realized a lot of the things that I was doing were to my own detriment. A lot of the beliefs that I held on to were holding me back instead of pushing me forward. And I had to accept that, and I had to change that. And quite frankly, being blunt, I had to drop the bullshit. If you hang on to all that masculine frame crap, yeah, you're never going to be fulfilled or find happiness. It's great short term, it's a good crutch. Great crutch. But it's not the answer. Cliff 3188, it's 50-50 whether men accept that society's ills are due to them enabling this behavior. A good chunk of them would agree to change what's necessary would result in them looking like the bad guy. Valid point. Shadowhunter, I think he's just commenting back here. Not entirely wrong, but what if yourself does not get the time of day? That is my search. Then the search is within yourself. That's what I'm trying to tell you. This is more than likely, once you challenge it, once you hit on the uncomfortable truth, this is more than likely a belief system you created yourself. It may have been through trauma. It may have been through rejection. It may have been through a number of things. You have identified yourself as not good enough. You have labeled it as society doesn't see it. But I'll tell you right now that if you look into yourself and you let that go and you start healing from that and you start accepting that you are good enough and you internalize that, things will change, man. It is not an easy process. It's going to take a while to get to that point, especially if you've been in that state of mind for a long time. All right. I think if being yourself isn't up to par, you can work on yourself in terms of finances, health, adopting stronger boundaries is all good. But trying to push frame or do the game thing will never work. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Briggs Jr., I don't know. I quit messing with women once I knew how bad they were and got my debt gone and paid off. A property in paradise. So take that for what it is. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. That is you being on your purpose and pursuing your goals. So that there's nothing wrong there. All right. Shadowhunter again. Where in my life did I mistake comfort for growth? When I thought I had a good career, then had to give it up for my morals. That's a big one. That is a big one. And it's good to recognize that too. You know, being able to step outside of that was a big risk. Being able to walk away from that income, I'm sure, was not the easiest choice, but you did it because it didn't align with your beliefs, which is what I was saying earlier with my relationship. It simply didn't align anymore. It was no longer serving a purpose. It no longer made sense, right? That is a good point. Cliff 3188, fear not fact. Having a family is the only way of leaving a lasting legacy. That is true. There's lots of ways to leave a legacy. You can write books. You can do videos like this. You can help other men. There's many things you can do. I mean, a lot of men, they build society. All these buildings we see. That is a legacy. How many people are not sleeping on the streets tonight because they have a nice apartment or a nice home? There's lots of ways to leave a legacy. These are just some examples, but he's right. Briggs Jr., time to work. All right, man. Shadowhunter, direct answer to you. When you try and do what you've been told should work and get ignored, you play little mind games and it gets ignored, and the lower your desires to accommodate others. Well, that's the thing. Don't do what you're told. Stop it. I'm being honest. I know there was a sense of humor there, but stop listening to other people. Stop doing what these fucking self-help gurus tell you to do. You got to do this internally, man. This isn't an external battle. There's no self-help book on it. There's no red pill game. There's no these are the steps. There isn't. You have to believe it first. And that's why it's lacking. If you don't believe that you're enough, how is anybody else going to do the same? We look at the example. I've heard this said. How can you love anyone else if first you don't learn to love yourself? If you are holding on to, and I'm going to call this the Eeyore mindset, For everything's terrible, then everything's terrible. But if you wake up, let's just, for the sake of Winnie the Pooh, fucking Tigger. He's jumping around. He's happy. He's always excited. He's there. He's ready for the party, right? Those are the different mindsets. And look at the different results. Again, these are just abstract concepts. But if we really look at it, what separates Tigger from Eeyore in Winnie the Pooh? Eeyore has nothing but doubt and despair and depression, whereas Tigger's like, let's do this, man. Whatever it is, we're gonna have a good time, right? But the mentality is the thing. It's not this out here. It's not the world out here. It's inside you. It's your perception. And it was constructed by and reinforced because of failures you encountered, traumas you endured. You have to break yourself of those things, separate them. Yes, they happened, but based on that, what do I do to overcome that and become a better version of myself? What do I do to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I am enough, and I do deserve this? Where there's no doubt in your mind, where it doesn't matter what society thinks. I am enough, and I am going to find it. That's building confidence. That's deconstructing trauma. And again, I don't think that we talk about this enough in this space. We talk about the problem, but we don't talk about the solution. The solution is you have to deconstruct your traumas, your past, the things that happened to you. Remember, and I'm actually getting into this in the next segment, but I do want to get to the panel as well. Remember, it's not because of what happened to you. This is the way it is. That is the victim mindset. You have to challenge that. This happened. This is what it is. What can I do next time differently? How can I overcome it versus live in it? Right? All right. And you add to this and are ignored, mocked, yes, society. Okay, again, this goes back to something I talked about years before the show. It's called, in theory, perception theory. I wrote a little thesis on it when I was in high school. And basically, just to sum it up real quick, perception is like a stage, right? And you are the character on the stage. You are the main character. If you are the villain, the world will view you as the villain. If you choose to show up as the hero, the world will view you as the hero. If you choose to show up as the victim, the world will treat you like a victim. What I'm getting at is each day you wake up, you have a choice to step onto the stage that is life and present yourself to the world as the character you want to be. No one does that for you. No one can do that for you. So, if, in this example, we're being ignored and mocked and society is part of the issue, then you're the issue. Because you chose to step on the stage that day and acknowledge that you're going to be ignored and mocked and treated poorly. That's the character you chose to play that day. You don't have to choose that character anymore. Quite frankly, you can come out tomorrow and choose a new character, and you may not know how to navigate it. But you can get there once you believe you're that character, and that comes to, again, breaking past the trauma. Okay. Adding to that, I will admit at least that I am in pain, but the community does help. That is good. That is good. It is time, though. Remember, community is a place to go. The work gets done at home. The work gets done in front of the mirror, when you're laying down to go to bed, when you're alone in your home. That is where the work gets done. Matter of fact, none of the work will get done talking to me or the community or anyone else. The work gets done in those uncomfortable, silent moments. That is where the work gets done. And I hope you embrace that, because that's where the real change starts. All right, Alex Patino. My awakening, getting red-pilled, pretty much happened slowly while in my early years in the Army. When I decided to stop watching TV and reading newspapers, I saw people overreacted to shit. Yeah, I don't really watch TV or movies anymore either. I really don't. I find no value in it. I was watching, doesn't call himself Tribe of Men anymore, does he? I think he had to change the name. Legion of Men or something. I was watching a show in which Jack Reacher is being like a cuck, and I'm like, yeah, I don't even know who Jack Reacher is, and I don't care to watch the show. But he made a point. He's like, in these fight scenes, he's big and tough, but he refuses to just like go after a woman. You might want to watch that. It's like a recent episode just came out this morning, or at least within the last couple of days. I saw it on my news feed this morning. Good episode. Like, that's why I don't watch TV. Modern society has just twisted everything up. I see Tim Johnson here. Hey, what's up? Long time to see you live. Yeah, it's been a while. All right. These comments are good, so I'm going to keep going. Again, I have not forgotten about my backstage guy, and we do have a lot to get through, but it's going to be worth it. But if you try, Cliff3188, but if you try to give her emotional fulfillment, she'll automatically go, "You're smothering me." I challenge you, sir. If you're dating a toxic woman, you're right. If you're dating an emotionally stable woman that actually cares about you as much as you care about her, she'll never feel that way. I promise you. I bet you my bottom fucking dollar. I put it all in the bank. If I had cash on the table right now for my wallet, I would bet you, and I would win that bet, that the right woman will never even think that, let alone say that. That again is the trap. That again is part of the comfort trap. We have believed truths based on statistics and videos and repetition of data that is part of the truth, not the truth. So yeah, if you date the same kind of woman that led you to the red pill to begin with, you'll get the same kind of women that goes after you walk away from this. But if you realize, and this is what we talk about in these channels, the pitfalls, the traps, the types of women, the toxicity, the risks, then you already know what to look for. You can automatically rule that kind of woman out. Just like that, done. You know exactly what that woman looks like. It's very easy to identify her. And I'll challenge you even more. You know exactly what a woman that would break all the expectations and molds of what we talk about in this community, you can find her too. Pretty easily, actually. But you have to look outside of the norm. And the norm for you might be a particular type, a particular personality, a particular body, a particular look, a particular hairstyle, whatever it is. Your familiarity may be leading you back to the "you're smothering me" type. But you already know what that type was. You just have to find the opposite out there. And they are out there. All right. Let's get to the rest of the chat here. I do that analysis after every failed approach. If you never have success, you never know where to build to improve. Do you do that analysis every day or just after failure? Because here's the challenge. That analysis shouldn't be done after failure, not alone. That analysis should be done every day, every minute, every hour. You should always be reassessing. You should always be reallocating your beliefs. And what doesn't make sense anymore, throw away. Whatever failures you had, cool. I know what not to do. We shouldn't be only focusing on ourselves after failure. I think that's harmful. Of course, get back up. Yeah, this sucked. It was a failure. But that's not where it ends, man. Again, the work is done at home alone. Not when anything just happened. Not after you talk to the guys. Not after any of that. Just alone. Before you go to work in the morning. Maybe when you get off. On your lunch break. Anytime you are alone and have to face yourself when nothing else matters and nothing else happened to cause it. That is where you need to focus on growth. All right. Let's see. Shadowhunter, finally, I'm 43, had a decent career in the military. All I really want is a good woman to start a family with. As days go by, I find it more likely that that dream is gone. That is, again, perspective. Are you choosing to show up as the victim or are you choosing to show up as the victor? You've already put in the work. Those things will come. If you haven't put in the work, you're right. Again, what is the quote? Whether you believe you're right or you're wrong, you're right. Right? I don't know who put the quote out there originally, and I can't remember how it goes, but paraphrasing it, if you believe you're wrong, if you believe you're a failure, if you believe that no one will ever love you and you'll never find a wife, you're right. You're right. Because again, we get back to perception theory. This is up to you to choose who you are this day. Okay? Some pattern recognition. If you get the same answers, you come to the belief. That is the comfort trap. That is what we are covering right now. Some pattern recognition. If you get the same answers, you come to believe you are always or nearly always in the wrong place at the wrong time. I always seem to encounter good ones only when they aren't. Then step outside of your comfort zone. Stop looking. This starts with you. Stop looking outside. Okay? Let me tell you how this happened. I have to now. I have to. You know what happened? When I was in my prior relationship, I started talking to somebody online. And we would talk. And we were friends. And that friendship developed over 2 years. I got to know a lot about this person. I got to know about the great things about him and the terrible, awful things they went through, or maybe they were part of, right? I got to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. And we were just talking. Still, I'm focusing on my life. I'm working on my promotion. I'm in another relationship. I'm not really too invested in this. I'm just talking. There was an interest, but again, just talking. And I built from that. And then it became something. I already had all the tools, the information. I already knew this person pretty well, and it clicked. And it clicked very well, mind you. I didn't go looking. And the entire time, I'm working on myself. It just happened to be somebody that I talked to. How was your day? What are you up to? Do you want to play a game together? Whatever. Just little things. And you built a foundation, a friendship. You built something with that person. And then it took off naturally when the time was right, not a minute before. So, I mean, if we're doing this speed dating bullshit and not working on yourself, you're never going to get it there, man. You'll be right. Again, it's how you show up on the stage. Let's go to the panel, because he's been waiting very patiently. All right, what's going on, man?
What's going on?
Not a whole lot today, just getting through this. We're about to head into segment 2, but before we do, I wanted to actually ask your questions on some things. First of all, open discussion. What are your thoughts so far on what we've discussed?
I like it. I've heard a lot of guys here in the MGTOW philosophy say that this isn't the final step. And then at times I'll think, well, for a lot of guys really in life, this is the final step, because once they've been liberated from what women have done or what they've done or what have you, the red pill truth of the culture, that's it, man. It's just a matter of what do you do the rest of the time of your life as a single man. So it's definitely a conundrum, that all of us here in the red pill and MGTOW have come to at some point. What do you do after you learn the red pill and the MGTOW truth? And unfortunately, what I have to tell you guys is that's something you have to figure out for yourself. I can only answer for me, which is a daily search, I think.
Yeah, I would agree 100% on that. So let me ask you some questions. I'm going to put you on the spot here. You are the only panel member, so spotlight is on you. All right. You don't have to answer these if you don't want to, but these are definitely some good questions I've been working through the last few weeks building this episode.
All right.
So the first one here is share a time your comfort zone became a cage, and how did you realize that?
My comfort zone. Okay, say it again. My comfort zone became a cage.
So, in other words, you were complacent, you were comfortable, and then you realized, oh, wait, I'm holding myself back. When did that happen, and what made you realize it?
Uh, I'm well. Let's just say I'm dealing with it now with the loss of my mother.
Okay.
I've gotten pretty complacent about being lazy on a few things. Uh, Something that I'm working through right now, and for a while I got comfortable, just being complacent, just existing, just being,
Mm,
lazy. It's something that I've struggled with that I work on. Um, yeah, I would say that's probably my biggest thing is, this is new to me still, even after a year. Um, I got complacent, yeah,
mm.
just not really just taking it one day at a time, just trying to put it all together.
Right, and it is a process, man. It doesn't just happen overnight. It's kind of like an onion. The more you look into it, the more you realize. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
yeah, that's pretty much what I'd say to that.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a couple more questions. We got like
Sure.
four more.
Sure.
So, how do you distinguish real growth from the illusion of it?
Oh, that's a good question. Hmm. Let's see. That's really a good question, man. I'd have to think about that one.
Okay. Anybody in the chat is you guys can pipe in too. So if there's something you want to say to that, again, how do you distinguish real growth from the illusion of it in the chat? If you want to answer that, we'll go on to the next one. I'll read the chat here in a minute. When you respond, please respond with the question and the answer. All right. Next question
Hmm.
for you, Outlaw.
Hmm.
What belief did you outgrow after you realized it came from a wounded place?
Ooh. Let's see. Belief. I quit. Yeah. Okay. So I quit blaming society for all of the problems that I was causing internally. Uh,
Beautiful.
and and basically, what that is was when I first started on this red pill journey many years ago. I was very sore about politics and religion. Um, you know, Society did this to me. So it was pretty much like I was continuously keeping myself trapped in that frame, that mindset of
Mm-hmm.
just a continuous loop cycle of this is society's fault. Well, I'm this. The society did it, so there's no change. And over time, it's like it did nothing but did harm to me and my mentality.
Mm,
You
I
know,
can definitely see that, man.
yeah. So at some point, you have to just realize what it is. Yes, there's a lot of things that society did in motion that we had no hand in, but at the same time, you've got to get out of that mindset. You're not a victim. You're not just a rock floating in the water with the flow and ebb of time. Uh, you know, you actually do have mastery over yourself. You have the ability to change at least not everything, but change it for you.
Mm,
Which that's the self realization. That's the self actualization of the red pill, the MGTOW philosophy. You at some point you become a sentient, self coherent being. Hey, what the fuck's going on around me, right? And you change that. I've told men numerous times on my channels, set goals constantly, never stop. That's something only you can do. It's subjective, right?
yep.
What I
Yep.
want out of life may not be what you want out of life. just because society is one way, just because the government's done this, that, and the third, or religion has held people's minds captive and hearts captive, don't mean you have to stay victim to that. Stay down on that. You can change yourself. You may not be able to change society. I think that's one of the biggest letdowns of all of it, man. You know, when I first discovered this, I was like, oh fuck, we're gonna change the world with this. Nope,
Yeah.
nope,
I'll
nope.
jump in on this one as well, man. So you guys, most of you already know, because part of my show is I react to things, but I also bring my own personal things into stuff, right? I've told you my journey. I've told you where I've been, where I'm at, where I'm going. One of the things I had to outgrow was a lot of the beliefs that were taught in this community. You know, I came to a point where I believed, honestly, that anything I felt in prior relationships was dead. That I couldn't be emotional, that I couldn't be loving, I couldn't be affectionate, I couldn't be any of these things, because all those things would destroy a relationship. All those things would make her lose attraction. And you know what? That's true for those people I was with. That's true for a lot of the toxic women that are out there. But that's what I had to challenge myself and outgrow as well, because it came from a wounded place, like it says in the question there. I was with people that were toxic. I was with people that were damaging. I was with people that caused me a lot of harm. But internalizing that if you show that you care about them, if you show compassion, if you leave frame, if you not pedestal, you never pedestalize, but if you never give her anything to fill her cup, she's going to leave you if you meet the right one. If you make, I'll just point it out. I'll just give you a specific example. So I am in a relationship now. Most of you have seen it that follow me outside of this show. And I've been very open with my feelings. I've been very open, very vulnerable with them. And because of that, that relationship has blossomed quite quickly. It's been good on both sides, and it's grown and grown and grown. Had I held on to my past beliefs, I would have been cold and distant. And I've talked to her. Matter of fact, she's watched some of my shows. She's seen all the stuff I post. She knows my perspectives, and she's seen them change. But when I showed her a video the other day, she started seeing the masculine frame thing and, how men have to be distant and everything. And she recoiled. And she started being afraid that if she says or does something, that I'm going to go into that frame or I'm going to become distant. And I had to flat out reassure her that that is not appropriate to this relationship, because it was built on trust and communication and sharing each other's feelings and talking to each other and making sure we understand each other completely on everything throughout every day, right? If I would have held on to those beliefs and I would have maintained frame, maybe I would have had a relationship with her still, but it would have sucked. She would have been constantly overthinking herself. She would have been pulling away. I actually watched it right after she watched that video. She was afraid of what to say or do. I said, just stop. Don't do that. Just be who you are. That's all I want. I don't want you to think about it. I want you to show up as you are every day. And it's interesting because if I would have held on to those beliefs, especially, again, masculine frame, it would have suffocated the relationship. Where, ironically, one of the comments earlier that if you show her how you're feeling, she'll say, you're smothering me. If I didn't show her how I felt, she would felt like I was pulling away. It depends on whether or not you're in a toxic relationship or not. If you enter into a healthy relationship, a lot of those things don't apply. That's the one thing they don't tell you in the red pill space. It's implied. But these pickup artists, these game guys, all of that, they're not telling you how to meet healthy women. They're telling you how to hook up. Therefore, yeah, if you maintain all of these things, you're going to attract a woman that wants to sleep with you. But if you're trying to build a relationship, if you're trying to build a solid foundation, a lot of these things do not apply. That does not mean that you placate. That does not mean you pedestalize. That doesn't mean you become a blue pill simp again. What it means is you understand the concepts, but you're secure in yourself. You've internalized these beliefs, and you know when to turn them off. You know when they don't matter. You know when they're not consistent with what's going on around you. It's not just a matter of, now I know it. It's black and white, hot or cold. There is no in between. Life is in color, man. There's a time and place for it. And that's what I had to learn. If I would have held on to my beliefs, it would have kept me in a wounded place. It would have kept me from something good. And I had to get away from that thinking because, quite frankly, it serves no purpose for me anymore. And that's, again, why I'm challenging you guys. Are you in a comfort trap? Or are you actually growing? That is something to ask. Let's go back to Outlaw, though. I have a couple more questions for you as well. Then we're going to get to segment 2.
Sure.
This is the next question. What narrative did you have to retire in order to evolve?
Let's see. Well, one of the narratives, like I said in the previous question, I had to quit blaming society for all problems. You know, I had to quit blaming the higher ups for shit that I wasn't doing. Right? Everybody knows, what's going on. But at some point, you know, if you keep going down that road, you will eventually fall into the same trap as the people who are out here that are programmed or indoctrinated to think this way, like victims.
Mm-hmm.
You see it for what it is. You know what's going on out here, but that's not the final word on it. Because what is culture? What is life? It's something constantly changing and evolving, right? This life is constantly about change and evolving. And that's one big thing about this philosophy that I think a lot of us here, we struggle with. I struggle with it, you know, going to the next big thing. What do we do from here? So, you know, the narrative of just blaming society for all of our problems, that's old, that's tired. We gotta evolve and change from that, man. You know, at some point we gotta be better than what we're accusing people of.
Yeah. You know, and this is one of the biggest pitfalls, and I'll ask the question early. This is actually going to be saved for segment 4, but I just ask it, and then I'll let you guys think on it. We'll get back to it in our 4th segment. Who benefits from your belief system right now? I'm going to leave that open-ended. Who benefits from your current belief system? And I'm going to add a little piece to it. Are you benefiting, or are the people keeping you in the feedback loop benefiting? So again, who is benefiting from your current belief system? All right, Outlaw, last question.
Yeah.
This one's a challenging one. How do you intentionally create discomfort in your life as a tool for transformation?
Ooh. Ooh. Let's see. Well, I know that a lot of the problems with me is I have a snacking habit. A lot of the discomfort there would be increasing my walking time, as far as you know, more sore back, more sore feet, what have you. Eating less, which that'll work on the inside, right? Fewer calories or what have you in. Uh, I would say just do what you got to do, even if it hurts. I don't know. That's a good question.
All right, so I'll pipe in with mine. Then I'm going to get back to the chat, and we'll move to segment 2.
Yeah.
Long segment, by the way, hour and 21 minutes. So thank you for tuning in. With mine, how did I create discomfort as a tool for transformation? Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm kind of an opportunist. So I normally would just take a job because it was easy. Yeah, I can show up, clock in, do the job, and go home. I can work 20 to 40 hours a week, be just fine. One of the biggest things I did to create a transformation for me was walk in to an interview and say, I want to be a manager. And then I had to fight and learn and struggle through how to do it correctly. And then I had to be questioned. And I told you this in other episodes recently. I had to be interviewed by 4 managers, 2 district managers, and the vice president of operations for my region. Pretty big deal. I had to be drilled on statistics and data and operations and how do you handle these situations. And I was up against 5 other candidates at the time. I was the only one that made it. Everybody else flunked out. They got demoted, actually. I was the only one that made it. And if I had never created that discomfort, if I had never reached for a bar that I've never gotten to before, I wouldn't be where I am now. Now, how do I keep that discomfort? I'm not done yet, man. General manager sounds good, but VPO sounds really good. You know what I mean? So that's uncomfortable. The amount of work that I've put in to get here and maintain this, I get questioned by my district manager regularly, and I'm not going to go into details, but obviously I can't. But I'll say he keeps me uncomfortable. What have you been doing to challenge your commercial accounts? What are you doing to improve your counter operations and sales, everything else? And these are real hard questions because I have to have real answers. I can't just BS my way through it and say, yeah, I'm talking to my commercial accounts and, this is what's happening. Then I have to go out and challenge it. What do we need to improve on? What are we lacking in? What do you need more of? And I have to struggle through that. And then I have to come to the table and say, yeah, we're messing up here. And this is my weakness. And this is how we're going to fix it. So for me, keeping that discomfort is part of the growth, right? If you get complacent, you again fall into the trap. All right, let's read the chat really quick. I can't read every chat, but I will read the ones that pertain to the topic. Shadow Hunter 17. How do you determine real growth and success after pain when you get through a hard patch and you're no longer hurting from what happened? That is true. That is absolutely true. But you have to allow yourself to get through that, and it doesn't have to be today. Sometimes pain takes a while to teach. And the day you realize you're truly healed is when it no longer has a grip on you. When you can look objectively at it and said, yeah, that part of my life was hard and I've learned from it and I can move on. Mm-hmm. That's when you know you made it. And I am glad we have another panel member that showed up for the second segment because we're going to get into some topics that he has experience in. Let's look at this one. Real growth is measurable. This is Sean St. George. You can see where you started, and over time, you can mark benchmarks of progress, setbacks, and aha moments. Very good. Very good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Blue last name. Society is a construct that we have to navigate to see where we fit in and have the courage to go against the grain. That includes here. You should go against the grain in any part of your life that you're in. Because again, if you're not challenging things, how are you growing? It's not enough to just say, I learned. It's what do I do with that knowledge from here? And does everything I learned apply to me? And if it doesn't, throw it in the trash and move on from there. All right. We got Shadow Hunter again because this is a question and an answer. Sorry for your loss. Lost a parent 2 years ago. This is for you, Outlaw. Mm-hmm. Lost a parent 2 years ago myself. It's not easy and can change your perspective on things. Yeah.
In my particular situation, not only did I lose a mother, I lost, the main person that kept the household running, mm-hmm. and then Pops, I inherited being the main caretaker and basically the runner of the house in favor of Pops because, he's got one leg, he can't do it anymore. There was a lot of personal growth that has come from this that is still happening even right now. It's a position I never thought that I'd ever be in my life, but One thing that I always told myself when it first happened was just don't cry about it, don't get upset about it, just do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just do it. It's going to be uncomfortable. There's going to be things happen you don't want to do. Just do it. Just do it.
Absolutely.
It's all a perspective of the mind. It's setting the mind like a dial. You've literally got to set your mind to do these things. Now, again, I'm not perfect by any means, and I still struggle with self motivation and all that stuff. It's still some days I'm just like, fuck it, man. What am I doing?
Yeah.
But you know,
Well,
it's,
a big part of that outlaw is we talk about discipline as well. So one of
yeah,
the things that I've mentioned before, and is actually a pretty standard idea at this point, when you wake up every day, make your bed.
yeah,
Sometimes you're tired, sometimes you don't want to, sometimes it's like, do it every day anyway. First thing about that is you're setting discipline so that every day you have a routine. But secondly, and probably most importantly, you've achieved something already. Before you got in the shower, before you went to work, before you did whatever you had to do for the day, you accomplished a goal. And you'll
yeah,
find when you get home at the end of the day, you'll thank yourself. When you climb in that bed at the end of the day and the sheets are nice and crisp and you can lay down and you're comfortable and it's not a big mess because you didn't do it, you'll feel good. You'll be able to be rested. And after a day of doing a lot of hard things, that's one thing you don't have to do now. You don't have to straighten out the bed before you lay down in it. It's already done.
yeah.
That's a practice and discipline. It's a good thing. I've got Sean St. George with us as well. I'm going to go ahead and keep reading the chats, get into the next segment. I know it's running long today. This is going to be a long episode. I'm not even going to pretend it's not. There's a lot to cover here. Sean St. George says, what narrative do I have to retire in order to evolve? Everyone, including your loved ones, have your best interest at heart. That
Yeah.
is big. Not
Yeah.
everyone does.
Yeah.
All right. And then Sean St. George also adds here, Rhino, by you in the belief system question, is that the person answering the question? Yes. Yes, it is. So there we go. Let's get into segment 2. I might do a quick break so you guys can stretch your legs, and think about what we were talking about here. We'll come back here just a minute. I'm going to go ahead and let's see if I can do it. Yeah, we'll throw the overlay up. I'll put you guys backstage for a moment. We'll play one of the songs we have queued up. It's not specific to the show. It's just something to break up the air here. And we will be right back. So stand by. It's just a short song, like 2 minutes or something, so we won't be gone long. Anyway, we'll see you here for segment 2 in just a second.
With the depths of your soul, there's a fire inside. Stirring the strength that you must die on. It changed you with comfort, made you so weak. It's time to awake, let your true self speak. Embrace your darkness, wear it with pride. Become the monster, release your mind. Rise up from the shadows, step into the light. No fear of the struggle, no dread of the pain. Stand strong in your power, break every chain. Every day you wake, it's a battle to fight. Choose to be the lion, don't yield to the fright. The world wants you soft, but you stand up tall. With each step you take, you'll shatter their wall. Control the beast, let it roll out and free. Become the monster, release your mind. Rise up from the shadows, step into the light.
All right, let's do this thing. We've got a lot to cover. Moving into segment 2. The overconfidence bias is what we're going to talk about now. All right, let's just dive right in. We'll get to the panel here in a minute. We're going to do audience comments as well in this segment, but we've got to kind of kick it in high gear because otherwise we'll be here all day. And then we'll be doing the show still at its regular time, and I don't want to do that. All right, overconfidence is not merely arrogance. It's often a defense mechanism against the chaos of uncertainty. People cling to their beliefs and their perceptions with ferocity, not because they are so sure they are right, but because the alternative, admitting they might be wrong, is terrifying, especially for those who have experienced trauma, betrayal, or loss. Certainty can feel like safety, but overconfidence creates blind spots. It locks us into patterns where we stop asking questions, stop evolving, and start building prisons made of our own conclusions. Let me go ahead and close out a couple things before we move on. I actually had links and videos, but you know what? They're not necessary for segment 1. So let's move to segment 2. You know what? We'll actually put this on screen here if I can do so. Yes. Let's go into this. This is from McCombs School of Business. We're going to bring this up on screen. I'm just going to press play and let it happen.
Good character can be undermined by overconfidence. David Brooks wrote in his book, The Social Animal, that human minds are overconfidence machines. And the psychological literature bears that out. A substantial majority of people believe erroneously that they are better than average drivers, more likely to be able to afford to own a house than their peers, and more accurate eyewitnesses than most other people.
Yeah, that's the guy.
Oh, I'm an excellent driver.
I do believe that I'm a better driver.
Yeah, other people don't know how to drive, but I know how to do it.
Entrepreneurs like Bernie Ebbers of WorldCom and Richard Scrushy of Health South, who built small, obscure companies into economic powerhouses, may gain a sense of invulnerability through a series of successes. Their minds underplay any role that luck had in their success. Indeed, a 2012 empirical study indicated that overconfident executives with unrealistic beliefs about their future performance are more likely to commit financial reporting fraud than other executives. Essentially, they are more likely to get themselves into predicaments where committing fraud seems the only way to deliver on their promises.
And I know what I needed to make in that class to, further my career. I felt all this pressure. I got up and I went to the bathroom and I looked through the stalls just in case someone had taped up the answers, just in case, like maybe it was my luck. Morally, I would have never made that decision, and that's not usually what morally I stand for, and I never thought I would find myself in that position.
People's irrational overconfidence also applies to the ethical correctness of their acts and judgments. In one survey, more people thought that they would go to heaven than that Mother Teresa would. Other individuals surveyed reported that they were twice as likely to follow the 10 Commandments as other people. In fact, 92% of Americans report that they are satisfied with their own character.
I've been in different situations where I have access to information that not every student has, and I've never used it to my advantage. So I would like to think that I'm a little more ethical than other peers.
This same overconfidence manifests itself in the workplace, where impossibly high percentages of people believe that they are more ethical than their competitors and co-workers. In one study, 61% of doctors believe that the freebies given out by pharmaceutical companies affected the judgment of other physicians, but only 16% believe that their own judgment was similarly affected.
We were playing a very difficult team, and I was the tallest on the team, so I was always the person who did the tip-off. Coach comes up to me and he says, "That's the girl you're going to be tipping off against. Can you jump higher than her?" And I looked at her and I said, "Oh yeah." She out-jumped me by 6 inches. It was awful.
Most of us simply assume that we are good people, and therefore we will make sound, ethical decisions. This overconfidence in one's own moral compass can lead us to make decisions without any serious ethical reflection. When hints of the Enron scandal first began to appear in the press, Enron employees' overweening confidence in the competence and strategies of their company, often named the most innovative in America, caused them to express surprise and indignation that anyone would question the ethicality of many of the firm's actions.
You gotta be kidding.
Any outsider who questioned Enron's tactics or numbers was told that they just didn't get it. That's ethical overconfidence in action, and it's part of the reason that Enron no longer exists.
Sometimes it's hard to even realize that you're doing something wrong until somebody else points it out to you, because in your mind, what you're doing is always right.
I try to think through everything, and I try to make the situation smaller, so it gives me less opportunity to be tempted.
Hold yourself up to a standard, and even when you're meeting or exceeding that standard, not, to still keep yourself accountable to that.
It's not appropriate to slack off if you make a good decision. I think there's a right social expectation that people do the right thing every time.
I think when you come to a spot, especially when you're in a hard place, that kind of morality will definitely come into play, and the decision making is up to you in the end.
All right. I had to go get some water really quick, so I didn't cut that up quite quick enough. Somebody also must have read my script. I see Sean in the comment series backstage at the moment. We'll get him on here in a few. The overconfidence, the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is why I'm glad he's here, because that is actually in my talking points. So let's get back to it. You really read the script. It's the next paragraph. The Dunning-Kruger effect illustrates a fascinating truth. Those who know the least tend to be the most confident. A little knowledge creates the illusion of mastery. Well, true wisdom often brings humility. Here it is. I promise you I've tied this all together. Many red pill thinkers fall into this trap. After experiencing betrayal or injustice, they latch on to a few statistics or anecdotes that build entire worldviews without seeking deeper, broader understanding. Partial truth masquerade as complete pictures, but true growth demands confronting complexity. For trauma survivors, especially veterans, the need for overconfidence becomes even more pronounced. In environments where survival was the goal, you needed quick judgments, strong instincts, and unwavering certainty. But when you bring that same mindset into civilian life, personal relationships, or professional spaces, it becomes maladaptive. You perceive threats where there are none. You destroy opportunities for connection because the lens you look through is shaped by combat, not collaboration. Now, I want to point this out. I brought up the combat thing for a reason. We do have a lot of guys that were in the military in our space. So that is a point we can talk to. And Sean, I'm actually going to bring you on to talk about that. But we do the same thing here. I want you to think about that again. For trauma survivors, especially veterans, let's change that out. For trauma survivors, especially those that have been through situations in which they came to the red pill space, such as divorce, child custody cases, family court, everything else. Again, the need for overconfidence becomes even more pronounced. In environments where survival was the goal, you needed all of those things: quick judgments, strong instincts, unwavering certainty. But when you bring that back to reality, you're still holding on to your trauma, your past beliefs, right? Therefore, your lens is skewed. You're not wearing objectively a 2020 lens. You're viewing the world, relationships, women, relationship dynamics. You're viewing it through trauma, and you're holding on to it. In this case, and I'm only going to touch on it, we're not going to do a deep dive on it, that is reminiscent of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Because you're taking prior information and applying it to future things or current things and expecting the same results. So your reaction to it, again, is maladaptive. All right. I'm going to throw Sean in here very briefly after I read the next one. Emotional certainty is one of the greatest traps. Because you feel it so strongly, betrayal, rage, fear, you assume it must be true. But emotions are not evidence, they are data points, not conclusions. They must be examined, not obeyed blindly. Believing that something is true simply because it hurts or feels intense can lead to profound self-deception. The anecdote or the antidote to overconfidence is not doubt for its own sake, it's curiosity. Strength lies in the ability to say, maybe I don't know everything. Growth demands questions, not just answers. Evolution demands openness, not just defenses. If you're willing to live in the tension of maybe, you are far more powerful than a man who claims to know it all. So before I bring Sean on, I want to ask the audience a couple questions in the chat first. What belief are you most defensive about, and have you questioned it? In the chat, please tell me what the question is and answer if you so choose. What belief are you most defensive about, and have you ever questioned it? Okay, the next question. Have you mistaken strong emotions for proof? Again, the panel can answer these as well if they would like to. Panel, if you want, when I put you on, feel free to ask me to ask the question again. Next question. Where could more curiosity lead you to better understanding? All right. And now I'm going to bring Sean in. I'm going to put him on the spot, ask him some hard questions. I can do the same with Outlaw, but let's start with Sean. Sean, welcome to the show.
This is an early one. Oh, man.
It is, and there's a reason I'm doing it the time slot I'm doing, and there's a reason that that I'm handling it the way I'm handling it. This is definitely a very well thought out episode. So I'm going to put you on the spot now. You ready for it?
Sure.
All right. So here we go. No holds bar. Share a time when you were absolutely certain and then you realized you were wrong.
Oh. Probably has something to do with the what is it? Try and be thoughtful in a way that doesn't piss people off.
Don't worry about pissing
it
people
would
off.
be
Just
something in the leanings towards the Cassius Belli to the War on Terror.
Okay.
And the campaigns that were done. I am fairly confident that Iraq was just nothing more than expansion. Or getting rid of somebody who didn't want to play by our rules anymore and was in a position to do so. Economically, anyways.
Right.
So, yeah, a bunch of my friends dying for what?
Mm.
And I was kind of there. Even I had people go, we shouldn't be here, dude. Like, well, there's a reason we're here. We should trust the government.
Mm.
And then, years later, things come out. Things get either declassified or leaked or whatever. And you kind of realize that the whole reason for a lot of it was just either extremely convenient with what some people's overarching goals are in the elite class, or it was fabricated, which I find both extremely intolerable.
Yeah. That's a good answer, man. That is a very good answer. I guess I'll go ahead and follow up with that then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to actually throw Outlaw in. I'd like both of you to kind of pitch your thoughts here. We'll start with you and then go to Outlaw.
Yeah.
So, how do you personally recognize when confidence is turned into stubbornness?
Lack of acceptance of criticism.
Okay. pretty straightforward.
Or I think what the best way to call it is like some criticism is stuff that is let's just say emotionally driven comments, because you may be challenging worldviews, you may be challenging somebody else's perception of things. I would say when you can't accept constructive feedback on your position.
Yep.
Outlaw, what would you add to that?
Yeah. So I'm gonna me and another brother actually talked about this today on the phone. This is something that a lot of MGTOW and Red Pill content creators definitely struggle with. Egos get in the way, you know, all of that sort of thing. Accountability. There's a lot of guys, I'm not going to name any names, but just from my personal observation, I've seen a few of the guys here that think because they've got a certain angle on something, or you know, they've experienced something a certain type of way, that they've got the final answer and say on a lot of this stuff, and their egos get in the way. You know, we have to be, as MGTOW or Red Pillars or just people in general that don't go by any label, you have to be malleable. You have to be ready for change. You have to be in a mindset of, you know, you don't know it all. There's a lot of guys here that do that. And it's a trap that sometimes you can fall into with ego, and got to be mindful of that.
Yeah. I'll add to that as well. Trying to get something done in the background while you guys are answering, and it's being a pain right now, so we'll just wait and see. But share a time when you were absolutely certain and then you realized you were wrong. And to add to that, how do you personally recognize when confidence is turned into stubbornness? My answer is a lot of the red pill beliefs and values I had. Bottom line, I thought I was absolutely right. These are certain truths. This is how it is. This is how it'll always be. This is how relationships are. This is how you have to, act in a relationship. This is what you have to maintain in a relationship. If you show any kind of emotion, the relationship will fall apart. I got a slap in the face with all of it. Matter of fact, to be very specific, the part of me that I thought I killed off, and I thought I did it for a good reason. If I wouldn't have opened that side of me back up, if I wouldn't have been emotionally vulnerable, if I wouldn't have been honest with my feelings, if I wouldn't have expressed my thoughts, it would have led to something never starting to begin with. So to add to that, how do you personally recognize when confidence is turned into stubbornness? I saw a transition from an old relationship to a new one where my belief systems were held in that relationship and how it dampened it. It left it underdeveloped. It left it maladaptive. And ultimately it failed. Now, that being said, I also am aware that relationship probably wouldn't have succeeded anyway. But I think that if I would have played out things that I restricted due to red pill concepts such as masculine frame and, never like being more emotionally vulnerable, never having those hard discussions, I think it might have ended sooner. I think I might have been able to get past it sooner. Ironically, holding on to red pill values kept me in a relationship I should have left 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So how's that for being stubborn? And then when I drop the game and I just decide I'm going to go into this new one just openly with no expectations and no ideas, it's a completely different outcome.
I'm going to give you another example. And this is something that content creators specifically struggle with, that I've noticed out of a few of them. And it's like I said earlier, when you get overconfident, when you first learn the red pill, especially when you start doing content, thinking you can help everybody with this philosophy and this message. When I first started making this content, I had that. I had that overconfidence. I was like, oh shit, man, yeah, we're gonna change the whole world with this. We're gonna reach men. We're gonna, you know, touch hearts and lives. Overconfidence, man, to the point to where I turned into being stubborn with, you know, falling in the trap of just saying the same shit over and over for so long. I forgot that crucial detail of doing what the channel's known for, growing.
Mm.
My avatar in particular, if you want to be funny, but
Yeah.
yeah, I got overconfident when I first started YouTube doing content. Like, fuck, man, I got this shit down. Nobody knows the game better than me. No, buddy, I was humbled because people would every once in a while would come against me and point out something, be like, no, you were wrong about this. Fuck. That's a big thing. You have to be willing to be corrected. You have to be willing to accept criticism. That's one of the biggest things a MGTOW and Red Pillar especially. Yeah, that's what we struggle with. I struggle with it. Sometimes I'm like, I don't want to hear that I'm wrong, man. Don't tell me that.
Yeah.
But you're not right about everything. That's a truth that I'm learning that's a red pill in and of itself. You're not right about everything. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong, and you will be wrong.
Yeah.
You will be wrong.
You know, to add to that, one of the biggest red pills I've taken lately is that the red pill isn't the answer, and that a lot of the things that brought us here no longer apply to me. Yeah. In other words, the red pill gave me lessons, but the bigger red pill was, now what?
Yeah.
And that's been something I've struggled with the last year a lot. And you know what else is interesting? There's two things. One, I had the same thing as you. Like, I'm gonna help people. I'm gonna save everybody. It's gonna be great. And the more I got into this, the more I realized I can't help everybody. It's not possible. Nope. I can help those that are willing to listen, but I can't help those that aren't ready to hear that message. That's something they've got to figure out on their own.
Well, when you get overconfident,
you can't help the unwilling.
Right. Well, when you get overconfident with, you know, the philosophy or with red pill or whatever, you know, and you know that you're right about it, you know, it's tried and true. Other people knows it's right. You've seen it tried and true in their lives. And you get stubborn thinking you can just help everybody. It just, you know, bulldoze your way through and try to help them. You gotta be reminded, and it's a reminder to me all the time. People are individuals. Everybody is different. Everybody accepts this differently on their own time. You know, remember, Rhino, we used to talk about red pill rage all the time. Why people it takes it in different speeds. You know, some for life, some for a few weeks, months, years. That's the answer. Nobody is exactly the same as the next person.
Right.
Everybody is on a different level than the next person, and it's you got to adjust, you got to adapt. That's a mark of a true content creator, a true red pillar, MGTOW, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Adapting to that person, trying to meet them on their level where they're at, if you can. And sometimes you just can't. Sometimes you just can't help people. That's a hard pill to swallow.
You know, and the next thing that I was going to say, as far as the next red pill I took, the bigger red pill, if you will, is I realized some of the red pill I took it no longer served me. Mm-hmm. It was no longer useful. If anything, it was harmful. Now that's not, I want to be careful with this because we're in this community, but that is actually my next point. I have been so afraid to say this. I've been so afraid to tell people where I'm at, what I'm doing, how I've evolved, because that means ultimately rejection. And I know it's going to happen. So ironically, where some of you guys are like afraid of the rejection from women, I'm afraid of the rejection from this community because of, and I'll be specific here, because some of my maladaptive behaviors from the red pill would have prevented me from a healthy relationship. And a lot of you guys, including Pop himself, saw that happen. If you're following me outside of this this channel, you'll know that a lot of the things that I talked about, you look at my personal stuff and you go, what the hell is wrong with him? But there's nothing wrong with me. I'm genuinely happy. I have a focus on my career. I have a focus on the things that I'm doing, but I also have a focus on somebody I care about a lot. And it feels so contradictory to a lot of the things that I talked about or that we talked about here. And I know I probably will lose a few people along the way for that, especially if they see it, because I've been very, and I say this again, emotionally vulnerable. I've been very open. I've been very true to what I believe in this relationship. And interestingly enough, I couldn't have been that if I followed a lot of these philosophies, black and white, if you will. That doesn't mean I've abandoned Red Pill. It means that I've outgrown some of the concepts. It means I had to challenge myself. And ironically, we've been talking about this today. What has been holding you back from growth? Well, a lot of people don't want to be rejected, so they stay comfortable. But I can't do that. I have to be honest with you guys. I have to be honest with myself. And I know there is some level of rejection or resistance or pushback I'm going to get from that. But if I did a deep dive on just my own story, I think I'd bore you guys to death, to be quite honest, because I could go on for a long time about what's happened here. But I will tell you that I didn't meet a perfect person. I met a person who went through a lot of trauma. I met a person that has a backstory that hasn't always been sugar-coated. I met a person who, quite frankly, if we checked off a list of women not to date, she would have not made the list. She would have been checked off. Yet, ironically, I find the most caring, compassionate, kind, reassuring person that I've ever met in my life that leaves no room for doubt that this is real. And it scares me to say that, not because it's not true, but because I come to you guys and say that, and you go, I remember all the things you... Yeah, I did. I did say all of that. And quite frankly, I might have been wrong. And I'm admitting that now. I might have been wrong. I would have checked her off 2, 3, 4, 5 times as not dateable. But what would I have missed out on? It's interesting. I would have missed out on somebody fantastic, a good person, because of a fucking checklist that we created in this community, but it doesn't apply. And I outgrew it. That's one of the biggest red pills that I've taken. And it's interesting, to say the least, because if I gave you guys point blank advice and you follow it black and white, I would have held you back from something potentially. Hence why I'm doing episodes like this now, because it's not enough to give you information. I want to challenge you. I want you to challenge me. I want you to challenge all of this. Not because there isn't truth to it, but because there's something beyond that truth. And I want you guys to be happy. I don't want you to be stuck here. I don't want you to come back here and we sit here in drunken rants for 6 hours about how everything sucks and how about relationships are horrible now, because it's simply not true. And the second that I turned away from that thinking and said, is this what I want? Not only the relationship I had, but what do I want? And when it came along, if I wouldn't have challenged those beliefs before it happened, I would have rejected it outright. So it's something to consider, gentlemen. And again, I get that there'll be pushback on this. Especially if you saw who and what and the situation as a whole, it wouldn't make sense to you guys. But it doesn't make sense. And I think that's one of the things that I'm learning, that sometimes the truth is not the absolute truth. Sometimes you find the truth in unexpected places. That doesn't mean I've forgotten what I've taught. Doesn't mean I've forgotten the lessons that I've learned. But quite frankly, the ones that don't apply, I threw in the trash because they no longer have any meaning for me. So anyway, that's my deep, vulnerable moment here on the show. Any of you guys want to jump in here?
I believe, well, you and I talked about this a few weeks ago in chat. You're well aware of the risks involved.
Oh yeah.
You're not jumping into it blindly.
No.
I think that is the big distinction between the majority and those who are going to be criticizing you. Is Red Pill is just it's a tool to help you make better decisions based on your unique set of circumstances, not as a catch-all. Because I make this constant thing on my channel, which is I'm just providing tools to put in your toolbox to see if it works or not. If it works, great. Keep using the tool. If not, go find one somewhere else.
Yeah, and you know what's very interesting about that? I am going to add to your point there because it's very valid. I'm just multitasking here for a second. Give me 2 moments. And I'll switch back over here. Something you brought up, I froze. I don't know if I'm frozen on your end. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, I disconnected.
Yeah, your camera disconnected.
All right, we'll do it without the camera. Here we go. One of the things I realized is that I couldn't have had here, I'll just say this. I've had very deep conversations with this person. Very, very deep conversations. Not what is your favorite color and when's your birthday? I've had hard conversations. Here's one thing. Every hard conversation I've had has been a discussion. Nothing has been off the table. Nothing has led to a fight. Nothing has led to discomfort. That's a red pill lesson there. I was able to have those hard conversations with that person, regardless of how hard they were. Another thing is I was able to have those hard conversations because I know what I need to ask. I know what I need to be aware of. So I'm able to have that deep dive. And had there been an issue, I would have known this isn't right. But ironically, knowing all of those things, knowing all the lessons we've learned here, I was able to take that deep dive and nothing was off the table. And a lot of good came from those conversations. A lot of growth came from those conversations. As a matter of fact, the red pill itself gave me the ability to dive deep into this and build a strong connection with somebody that I wouldn't have been able to build otherwise. So that in itself is another shock. All the information, all the knowledge, all the tools I had allowed me to have, I should just make an episode about this alone, uncomfortable conversations. And those uncomfortable conversations with the wrong person would end that relationship before it started. But those uncomfortable conversations with the right person grew that relationship exponentially each time they happened. And I mean, I'll flat out tell you, I've had discussions. I've gotten to spend time with this person. We've had a lot of phone calls. We've spent time in person together. It's been a lot of things, but some of those phone calls last hours, and we just discuss all the little things that have happened in our lives, every detail. My shit, her shit, all of it. It's all out in the open. That's something that I don't think people do outside of the scope of this knowledge, because quite frankly, they don't have the tools. They've never seen it. They've never been able to develop it because it's never been there for them. So that's something I do take from this community, having uncomfortable conversations with the knowledge I have. Let me see if I can switch to the panel view. Hang on. Go ahead, Outlaw.
Well, you going back to what you said earlier about, being afraid of rejection. The only thing that came to mind when you said that for me was maybe it's not you, maybe it's the environment you're around has become toxic. There is a very and maybe people will hate me when I say this, but there is, in this space, there really is an unsettling truth that there's a lot of people that will hard nose you if you say something wrong or out of pocket. That's one thing that this space that we're in needs to work on very, very much so, is stop outright just banning people, just throwing people out, just rejecting them, excommunicating them for what we consider wrong thing. What does that do? That makes you no better than the people we talk about constantly out here in the politics and religion, that sort of thing. If you're becoming no different than the people you're claiming to fight against, then what are we doing here? You know, you can't stoop to the level of that and throw somebody out simply because they're different thinking than you. That's, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. That deep-seated fear of always been on pins and needles, saying something that's going to get you excommunicated, or I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not us. Sometimes maybe it's the environment around us that's toxic. If people hate me, if people want to leave me, hey, truth is truth no matter who it is. And you either get with it or, you know, it'll conflict you.
Yeah. And I mean, the biggest point of my show, I think it's evolved, but I think the biggest point of my show here is to challenge people, is to get them to grow, is to get them to have those uncomfortable conversations even within themselves. And I'm not going to hold that back from you guys. If something has changed in my view, I'm going to offer that to you because it may be a valuable tool for you. That's not to say, and I need to emphasize this throughout the show, that's not to say that I've abandoned the concepts here or that I no longer believe they have value. But sometimes you find yourself in a point in life where the things that may have been valuable to you at a point, they're still tools in your toolbox. You can still go back and pull them out when necessary, but their value is diminished because sometimes you find a new set of tools or you find new beliefs or new ideas to expand on those things that you know. It doesn't mean you just blindly forget everything you learned. You just integrate that into yourself and you know when to use them and when not to. For example, I'm not going to take an axe into surgery. If I learn to do surgery, the axe needs to stay at home, right?
Yes.
So there you go. We'll read some of the chats here really quick. Shadowhunter17, Socrates quote, "The Egyptians say, I'm the wisest of all the Greeks, since I know that I know nothing." That's pretty good. Just because Outlaw's here, Riggs had to say, "Damn boy, you thick."
Some things will never change, that's for sure.
Yeah. All right. Shadowhunter, it is a good quote. Okay. And moving on, Alex Patino. We have to remember that the red pill is not a philosophy nor a prescription. It's a praxology. It's always changing, yet some truths still hold true. For example, as a man, nobody is coming to save you. That is absolutely true.
That's true.
That is a core foundational belief because it is true. That is an example of the truth. As men, we know that. And that's something we have to accept. So yeah, Alex Patino, very good point. And Alex Patino also says, and women will always look for the very best they assume they're getting. Also true. But here's the thing. With what we've gone through as a community here, some of us longer than others, some of us have been here for decades, some of us are fairly new. But one thing that is true, you can take everything you've learned here, all the principles, all the values, all the self-help stuff, and you can apply that and become the best version of yourself. Who's to say you don't meet the woman that sees you as that best option, right? If you put in the work, if you put in even half the work that we've taught you here, you're already a far better man than a man that has never been here to begin with, right? Especially if you've been through past trauma and pain. Why? Because pain is often the best teacher, and you've harnessed that pain. You've looked at it for what it is, and because of everything you learn here, you've learned how to be a better version of yourself already. So there's a lot to be said there. Women will monkey branch. Women will look for their best option. That's absolutely true. Why wouldn't you? If you are the vulnerable of the two sexes that has to make sure that her genetic lineage is properly protected and provided for, why wouldn't you choose for the best traits? That's common sense when you think about it, just from biology. So why not take that opportunity to learn everything you have here to become that best version of yourself? You don't know. I didn't know, but that person does exist for you. Potentially, that's something you'll have to find out for yourself. I can't promise that for you.
Well,
But yeah,
you know, human nature is in my opinion, human nature is incurable. You know, I've told people numerous times that just because I went red pill and MGTOW, that I never stopped looking at women. I just don't simp over them the way that the culture does anymore. You know, like everybody else here, you know, knowing the risk and whatnot has paid off and come a long way. Um, you know, sometimes I think with all the people here in this group watching us that makes the content, I think sometimes they need to see us say some uncomfortable things or probably do some uncomfortable things, maybe to help them make better understanding of what they're going through. Like, for instance, a while ago when you said that, I was thinking maybe sometimes it does need to be said, like, you know, it's okay for you to uh, still look at women or what have you, or you know what I mean?
yeah,
Maybe they need to hear it from somebody they listen to
You're-
as a content creator sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
the thing is though, a lot of MGTOW men, a lot of red pill men, they'll never go back. Some are undecided. I'm just saying, for me, I never stopped looking, but I'm also not simping. I'm not
oh yeah.
under the laws. Nah, we're done with that.
You know what?
We're
I'll
done with
add to that.
that.
I will definitely add to that. You guys know, everybody watching this show, I would think for the most part, unless you're brand new here, most of you guys have been with all of us, whether you watch my show, whether you watch Outlaws, whether you watch any of the content creators in our space. Most of you know the lessons. Most of you know all the information you need to know. That being said, I challenge you two things. One, I challenge you to maybe not just, blanket everyone is the same thing because of statistics and data. That's a big component to it. But also, remember when we talked about in segment 1 challenging yourself and challenging your belief systems? I honestly would challenge you to look outside the purview of what you set your standard as. Now, why did you set your standard? I can tell you why I set my standard for don't date single mothers, because I've dated single mothers and it's always ended badly. It's always messy. They're always promiscuous. They've cheated. They've left. They've been terrible people, right? And statistically speaking, single mothers oftentimes lack pair bonding ability. They lack the ability to develop a healthy family with you. They always put you on the back burner, but those are blanket statements. If you challenge those, and I'm not saying abandon, I'm saying challenge. Is this person that I am speaking to at this moment under the same category as that blanket statement, or is there a difference here? You have to decide that. But I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm going to be very blunt about this. You may very well shortchange yourself of a healthy, long-lasting relationship if you hold on to only black and white statements. You may find some unexpected things in truths you believed were immovable, so to speak. Now, that being said, your risk assessment should always be in the forefront, but it's okay to question your own belief system. And I think, if I may go so far, it is healthy for you to question your belief system, because you might find out sometimes, yeah, you're right, but you might be surprised to find sometimes, oh, I was wrong. And that's up to you to determine. It's not up to me. It's not up to the panel here. It's not up to the chat or any of the other shows in this space. It's up to you to determine that. But I do think keeping an open mind, being malleable, and being ready to change your mind when things no longer apply to you is very important. On that note, we are on segment 3. I'm currently charging the camera. It's at 21% already, so we should be able to be, back up and running in that capacity here shortly. It completely died because life happens. All right. We are now exactly 2 hours and 16 minutes in and have covered now 2 of the segments. Let's see if we can get to the 3rd and 4th without going too far into time. Let's go into segment 4. I'm not on camera, so I don't think I need to full screen myself. We'll just stick to this. Segment 3, ego versus self-awareness. The ego is part of you that believes it already knows. Like I just talked about this. It clings to labels, identities, and narratives because change feels like death to the version of yourself you've carefully built over the years. Ego insists, this is who I am, even when that who is wounded, rigid, or outdated. It does not seek growth, it seeks survival of its own version of the truth. Ego fights any idea that threatens the story you tell about yourself. And unfortunately, the tighter you cling to that story, the smaller your world becomes. Self-awareness, by contrast, is the ability to witness yourself without defensiveness. It is the art of observing your thoughts, behaviors, and emotional reactions without immediately running to justify them. Self-awareness asks not, how do I defend who I am, but who might I become if I allowed myself to change? It opens the door for growth because it acknowledges that you are not static, you are a work in progress. So this goes to the audience and the panel here. Either of you can answer this. I'm going to ask the first question and wait for the chat. I'm going to read some of the chats in the meantime. Where in your life are you defending an outdated version of yourself? To the chat or the panel, feel free to answer that. I'll ask it one more time. I'm going to read some chats. I'll ask it again when I'm done reading the chats. Where in your life are you defending an outdated version of yourself? Think on that for a minute. All right. Here are the chats that come up. Lou, last name, red pill gives you armor. You can see the flags and react to them accordingly. Nothing wrong with having a good person in your life. Absolutely. Riggs Jr., if my antics are ever unwelcome, I expect a DM informing me of such position. I can be Mr. Serious if need be. No, Riggs, I like you just the way you are. I don't want you to change, and I don't want you to stop with your antics. You're absolutely fine. And that is the chats. So let's get back to the question. Where in your life are you defending an outdated version of yourself? Chat, feel free to type. In the meantime, panel, would you like to react to that one?
That's what I'm thinking of, because that one makes you think. Because I'm pretty sure the default stance is, for most people, I would assume. So it's a subjective opinion, not based on observation, is that most people think that they aren't outdated in their current state until they get corrected or until they are shown something that forces them to reevaluate that statement or the stance.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But I think the bigger problem is that what you said, most people think they are at their final form, so to speak. I did for a long time. And then I realized I don't know a fucking thing. And I think
All that I know is I know nothing.
Exactly. Where in your life are you defending an outdated version of yourself? For the chat again? You know, I definitely am guilty of this in the fact that, again, and I'm repeating myself, but it's something to be said. Maybe the fact that I'm repeating myself shows you the biggest flaw in my thinking. I believed very black and white that all of the emotions that I ever expressed in a relationship were going to be what led to the demise of a relationship. Therefore, I cut myself off from those feelings and emotions and left myself a hollowed out shell that was very rigid. And when I stopped defending that, I realized that I was cutting myself off from being whole. I was actually compartmentalizing myself in an unhealthy way that was restricting me from being my true self. It was restricting me from growing.
Well, Rhino, I'll give you a perfect example. And it's something that a lot of people here probably still struggle with. Let's take politics, for example. When I first started my red pill journey, I fell into the trap of I'm on the right side of history and everybody on the left is just idiots and brainwashed. And sound familiar?
Oh yeah.
The left versus right paradigm that still goes on. You know, I was convinced that, okay, the side of the political aisle I'm on. See, when I first started, I thought that Republicans were, you know, the right side and Democrats were the idiots. But that shortly changed the more that I listened to both sides, and you know, I looked at what was really happening. I had to come to the painful realization that I was wrong. No, Republicans nor Democrats were right. They're just filled with people who were both propagandists that wanted to use everybody. And politics was my doorway into it. You know, for a long time, I was like, nah, man, Republicans are the right people. Democrats are idiots. You know, Trump, he's the right guy. You know, Biden, he's an idiot. No, 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 no. I had to slowly pry my fingers off that way of thinking. They're both. They're both. They're both wrong. It was
Power
me.
attracts a. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to step on you.
No, I was done, but I was just saying that no, it was me. I had to come to that realization. Go ahead.
Yeah. Uncomfortable
Yeah,
truth.
what is it? Positions of power attract a certain type of people, usually the kind who do not have the best interest of others at heart, just themselves.
Yeah.
So, like, even including your managers at work. This ain't a jab at you because of your position, Rhino, but people who seek it out, they're typically not the best people. They get along to go along and to make themselves look good. Just look at the politicians, and they're lying when there's actual objective facts. And the population is too eager to eat it all up because it coincides with their worldview or their perceptions.
That's a very good point. We'll go ahead and get to the next question here because it's kind of a follow-up. This is for panel specifically. Looks like chat has kind of died out, so we'll shift to panel here. Actually, I'm going to read the Rumble chat. It's brief. Rumble has been brief lately, which is okay. Captain Spaulding said, you have lost a heap of weight. Yeah, actually, I finally broke my record. I have about, if we're being realistic, before I'm completely healthy for my age, height, weight, all of that, probably have about 30 left to go. But I finally tipped the scale down to everything turning green. A couple were in the yellow-ish category, but I've definitely been taking care of that. It's one thing to just say it. It's another thing to do it, because if you're going to do it, lead by example. So it's been a challenge at times, but I am working on it. He did say, good to see you back, though. J371, this is going to be interesting. Yes, absolutely. And then Captain Spaulding again. Why did the chat wipe clear? For some reason, the live feed cut out. If there are still issues, please let me know on Rumble or YouTube if you're having issues seeing us or seeing the chat. Let's get to the next question, though. Have you ever realized... Well, no, actually. Yep, no, that's right. Have you ever realized you were stuck because you refused to challenge your own ego? And is my panel still awake?
Thinking as the lawnmower is passing by from the landscapers.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I don't think I have much of an ego, or at least none that I recognize. So it's a little difficult to question, but my personality, or I guess you'd say values, beliefs, whatever, it has shifted and changed as I've gotten older. Perceptions that I had when I was younger realize that's young and dumb. They've changed over time.
Okay.
I don't know. I am unsure. That is another self-reflection question that usually requires somebody else to identify in you,
Yeah.
to ask you to change yourself.
Very good, man. We'll go on to the next point then from here. Hopefully Outlaw is still with us. Here we go.
Yeah.
Eh,
Yeah. I'm
oh, yeah.
still-
Okay. Okay. Did you have anything to add to that one, or did
I
you want to?
wasn't, brother. I wasn't present. I had to step out for a minute.
All good. We'll just go ahead and move on then. Here we go. One of the biggest lies ego tells is hidden in the phrase, "That's just who I am." I've actually seen this on our shows in the past. I've seen it in comment sections. I've seen it pretty much everywhere in this space. That's just who I am. It sounds like authenticity, but it's often fear in disguise. It's easier to double down on your current identity than it is to admit you may have outgrown it. True authenticity is not about clinging to who you were. It's about being brave enough to evolve into who you are meant to become. Pain often becomes part of the ego's armor. Somebody mentioned armor. Actually, it's right here. Lou last name. Red pill gives you armor. Pain often becomes part of ego's armor. If you've been hurt, betrayed, abandoned, your ego might turn those wounds into commandments. Never trust, never love deeply, never show weakness. That sounds familiar, doesn't it? These rules feel protective, but they also wall you off from deeper relationships and richer experiences, which was once necessary. What was once a necessary defense becomes a permanent prison if left unchecked. This is again for you guys. What law of your life was written by your pain, not by your aspirations? This is to either one of you or the chat.
I just wanted to cover that this is just who I am thing real quick. The explanation that you got, it seems partly correct. The only thing I would add to it is if it is just the way who I am, that sounds like an indefensible statement. You've got to be able, if you have conviction about something, saying it's just the way I am tells me you're conforming.
Well, let me add to it then. Because this happened to me, this is just the way it is. That is another way to look at it.
That would be, yeah, I think that's, well, that is justifying your conviction in a way that I think most people will say, oh, all right, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is it? When I became a father, my ideas about abortion changed very significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd always been, I don't like it, but it seems to be a necessary evil in certain situations. Now to the point of it is an abominable practice that I think should only be considered if we're talking about the life of the child or the life of the mother is at stake. I know people who have who got snuggle struggle pregnancies.
Right.
I don't think it is right to deny a life because a bad thing happened. I'm very sympathetic to it. But this is why I like how the Supreme Court handled it. Don't make it a federal issue. Go back to send it back to the states and their localities to deal with it as they see fit, because we are 50 states and territories, which is like 50 independent nations and territories.
Yeah.
We don't have the exact same culture. We have some mutuality, but we are not the exact same.
I would definitely agree with that, man. Yeah, and see, that's something that your view changed. Now, I have a real tough question for you guys.
Yeah.
How do you differentiate between healthy caution and ego-driven defensiveness?
Healthy caution.
ferocity of the way they're defending it.
All right. Care to elaborate a little bit?
I would say anybody who's familiar with Fresh and Fit, and when they do the after hours with the girls and they are being hysterical about defending their opinion or defending their stance, it is using emotional statements as their justification versus something logic or based in like, okay, I understand that now. But somebody who's got defensive caution, they're usually calm, collected. They're looking at things that are going on in the scenario or in the statement. They're thinking about how they're going to respond and respond in a meaningful way, not just losing your shit.
Now, that is actually a very good example. Go ahead, Alan.
I would say the difference is in, are they approaching it with an open mind versus a made up closed mind? Is your mind open or closed? I would say is the answer to that.
I'd say that's fair.
Because
I would agree.
If you're proceeding with caution healthily, you're keeping an open mind about something. But if you're ego driven, then your mind's already made up about the situation, whether you're right or wrong. So you keep an open mind, which is what you should do anyway. You know, that would be my answer.
All right. Looks like we're having a problem with the chat. It hasn't updated for maybe 15, 20 minutes now. So if you guys are having any issues and you're part of Gilded, please reach out and let me know. But I will add to that. I would say in our space, channels like ours, we do stay fairly open-minded. If you look at like Crusader Nate, for example, he's constantly on the shows when I don't know where he's been lately. I haven't seen him in a while, but he's constantly challenging belief systems and keeping an open mind. Where if you're watching Fresh and Fit, it's their way or the highway very much. Now, that says something, because if you're watching shows like that and that is your introduction to Red Pill, it's very easy to become dogmatic in your beliefs and your principles, which is ego driven. Once again, you're not keeping an open mind. For example, today's episode, we're literally asking you to keep an open mind. That is healthy caution. You know, for example, what they said earlier, guys on panel here, I know the dangers. I know the risks. I know what could happen. I know the statistics on everything. But yet, while I know that, I still took the opportunity to take a risk. I am cautious in the fact that I'm aware of the risk. Whereas ego-driven defensiveness is much what you see in Fresh and Fit, that it is the way it is, and this is how it is, and don't argue with me, and I'm right, and I know.
Mm-hmm.
But do you know? Or are you just holding on to an outdated belief system? Yeah. All right. Let's go into the rest of this, and then we'll be on segment 4, and then we're about done today. So we're doing pretty good. Psychological rigidity is ego's signature. When you refuse to even consider that your beliefs, reactions, or behaviors might need updating, you become brittle, and brittle things break. Flexibility, the willingness to rethink, reframe, and relearn, is a sign of strength, not weakness. A flexible mind can weather life's storms. A rigid mind snaps at the first time the wind shifts. Now let's bring this back to us. In the Red Pill community and similar spaces, ego often hides behind hard truths. People who wake up to betrayal, lies, or injustice understandably build walls. But if you stay stuck in defense mode, if every conversation, relationship, or opportunity is treated like a battlefield, you're no longer awake. Let me say that louder in case you missed it. You are no longer awake. You're just armored. The armor that once protected you now prevents you from feeling, growing, and building something better. Now, this is a question again for the chat. I do see the chat is working again. And the panel can answer this as well if necessary. Here we go. Has your armor turned into your cage? This could be rhetorical. You don't have to answer the question, but think about it. Has your armor turned into a cage? All right, I'll give that a couple seconds if somebody wants to jump in. If not, we'll move on to the next question. And we'll read the chat if you guys want to answer in the chat.
Yeah, I see examples of this, well, on Facebook. Yeah, you guys are on there. When, you go to one of these pages and somebody says, oh, you got fragile masculinity or a fragile this, that, and the third. One thing to keep in mind is the information you're getting a reliable source for you to formulate the opinions to say that? Or is it just another biased source? And oftentimes when I get called that, when I say, oh, you got fragile masculinity, and then they'll often cite like a Google search or this, that, and the third, I'm like, do you even understand the sources that you're talking about are biased, and stuff like that? So I think it's important that just because somebody says that to you, where are they getting their source of information from? Because most times it's just people in their feelings saying this stuff, getting upset, and like you said, building armor and defense around themselves so that they don't get hurt for what you're going to tell them.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I'd
I could see, I could see how ego creates ironically, my avatar is wearing a suit of armor. It's meant to be there for defensive purposes.
Mm-hmm.
That way, when you're fighting for whatever, you have armor there to protect you from a life-threatening injury.
Mm-hmm.
That can also become your prison if you are not very careful about, I don't want to say exactly about being open or open-minded, but not closing yourself off from everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I would add to this. So, for example, we talked earlier about trauma and betrayal and cheating and all of that, and how that creates over a period of time. That's complex post-traumatic stress disorder. In other words, you take a series of events of trauma and you conclude through ego, this is just the way it is, so I am this way. That's the armor initially because it protected you from that pain. But later it cuts you off from opportunities in which it became the prison. So this is where I don't have all the answers for you. This might be, I hate to be this guy, but this might be something where if you're feeling this way, you might want to reach out to professional help and work through some of that. I think we do our best here, but we don't have all the tools. But if you're feeling trapped and you're watching this episode and you feel like, yeah, no, I still have some stuff to work out, but I don't feel resolved in just doing it myself or watching shows like this or talking to the guys in this community, you may need to reach somebody that can help you in a professional level, because the worst thing you can do is not take care of the problem. It's like, you are bleeding out and you don't get the tourniquet, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that is something I definitely encourage you guys to do if you feel you need to. All right. Let's move on to the next one. How do you recognize when you've outgrown the defenses that once served you? Gentlemen, your thoughts.
Well, let's go back to it. When you no longer feel like you have to defend every little thing you say, right? If you're not having to use that shield for every little thing you say against people, if you know when to use it and how to use it to deflect certain things, but not everything, right? If you're not overreactive to everything said to you, I think that's a good way to describe it.
Okay. Sean, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, the question reminds me, I forget which philosopher or group of them. I don't want to say it's the nihilists, but it might be. A common tactic that I don't want to say advertise or push, is just learn to be silent. Learn to, if somebody's coming up with you, maybe let's just take a scenario. Somebody's asking you a question in bad faith.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have an obligation to answer?
Absolutely not.
So you can be silent. You can dismiss them and go, I know the game you're playing. I decide not to play with your silence.
It's a good one.
That's a very good way to look at it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, just like a lot of Red Pill, we are not playing by the games that the rules of the game were meant to only help a certain subsection of people succeed, not people in mass.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, gentlemen, we'll jump back in. Sorry, I had to kind of multitask again, if you can tell. So we're good. I'm back. Everything's fine. Nothing to see here. Nothing happened. All right, I'm gonna put you guys back for a second. Don't go anywhere, because we'll have you back on in a moment. I kind of like the way we do the show now. It feels a little bit more natural. I have time to get to the points, and then the guys get to kind of chat about it. If you guys like it, let me know, because I'm really enjoying this format. It feels a little bit more cohesive. All right, let's get into it. Self-awareness demands that you constantly audit your beliefs, reactions, and choices. It doesn't mean living without doubt or shame. It means living with curiosity and courage. When you choose self-awareness over ego, you choose freedom over stagnation. You choose growth over comfort. You choose to become bigger than your pain, wiser than your fear, and braver than your past. On that note, let's do a quick video here. Again, I'm just going to throw it up on the screen. We'll watch it for a minute. It's about 7 minutes. We'll take a quick break again, and we'll jump into segment 4. So here we go. It's going to be a little bit corny, but it makes the point. So here we go.
Howdy. Welcome to the Ego Hackers channel. My name is Samwise, and in this episode, we're going to explore the ego within personality typing. We'll delve into what the ego is, its critical role in shaping our conscious experience, and its impact on cognitive processing and emotional well-being. Let's get into it. The ego is central to our personality, functioning as our default side of the mind. The ego is the you that you identify with, like, hi, I'm T.I. Hero. I'm the smart guy. Apparently. God help us all. Or the, hi, I'm the guy that forges the path ahead. You know, the NI heroes, or the, I'm the people person, the FE hero. Or SE, let's be honest, depends on the perspective, etc. We also have some identity with the parent involved, like, you know, hi, I'm Mr. INTP, I'm the smart theory guy, while my dad, who is also TI hero, ISTP, he's like, hi, I'm the smart, fix-it, jack-of-all-trades guy. But, you know, the hero leads the ego and it's optimistic, so we really like that side of ourselves, but the parent is also a major player in the ego, so it's part of that self-identifying as well. The ego shapes our conscious experience and decision-making processes. For example, an individual identified as an INFJ means their ego aligns with the cognitive function characteristics of INFJs, like, you know, this guy's an INFJ because his hero is introverted intuition, and his parent is extroverted feeling, child, TI, etc. This alignment significantly influences their thoughts and behaviors. So let's check out the functions of the ego. You have the hero function. It's our dominant, reliable trait steering the ego's direction. We are always quick to use our hero function because we are the most familiar with it and versatile with it. There is an arrogant nature to it, that we believe that it'll solve every problem, but it won't. Then we got the parent function. This represents our sense of responsibility and maturity, crucial for a balanced ego. The hero is strong, but requires the parent for effective operation. These are the main two functions that are involved with the ego. There is a child and inferior, however, but they play a bigger role in the subconscious, which will be the next episode. But the child is tied to our creativity and spontaneity. It's a source of purity and vulnerability. And the inferior function is a function of anxiety and aspiration, pushing us towards growth. With that being said, let's check out what the ego is about. The ego is a pathway to cognitive and emotional mastery. A healthy, well-developed ego is essential for effective cognitive processing and emotional health. There are two aspects to developing the ego. One, making sure the hero develops into the warrior function, where the hero actually listens to the concerns of the nemesis function, and challenges itself to heed the warnings of the nemesis function. The other is developing the teenager function into the parent function, where the parent function takes initiative instead of sitting in apathy, watching the hero and the child function fool around. The road to maturing the ego predominantly revolves around cultivating this warrior function and the parent function. We'll start off with the hero function. It's kind of funny that the best way to develop your ego is to take the part of you that you most identify with, the hero, the function you cherish and love and hold dear, and tell it to get over itself. Kill your darlings, 2024! The transition from the hero to the warrior function is crucial in personality development. This evolution represents a maturation of the hero, combining its inherent strengths with life experience to form a more adaptable and resilient warrior. This transformation is essential for personal growth, as it moves us beyond the limitations of the hero function, fostering a holistic adaptability and resilience, but also symbolizes the harmony of cognitive functions, leading to a more balanced and complete self. It's not that the hero is bad, not at all. There are just more effective tools to use at times, and we are often too stubborn to admit it. And moving on to the parent function, which is the most vital part of the process. You can check the health of your ego based on how well and effective your parent is. The parent function, different from the hero, is about responsibility and cautious discernment. It acts as a balance to the hero's confidence and dynamic nature, employing a strategy of precision and energy conservation. The development of the parent is crucial, as it is inherently pessimistic and energy conserving, unlike the optimistic hero function. This makes the parent the source of maturity and responsibility, stepping in to provide challenge and balance to the hero and the child's functions. Each personality type has a unique parent function that shapes its sense of responsibility. You got parent functions like the TE parent of ISTJs and INTJs, focusing on systematic research and teaching, to the SI parent of the ESFJs and ESTJs, emphasizing endurance and consistency. Each type's parent function manifests differently. Maturity in each type involves embracing and developing this parent function, leading to a more balanced, responsible approach to life. For instance, the FI parent in ESFPs and ENFPs evolves into a strong moral conviction, resistant to social conformity. Similarly, the NE parent in INTPs and INFPs develops into a foresightful guide for others, and the SE parent in ISFPs and ISTPs become adept in making experiences for others better. Be it comfort or strengthening or just giving good experiences. To confirm the development of your parent function, it's essential to learn how to parent yourself effectively. Our Season 2 focuses on this aspect for each of the 16 personality types, providing in-depth guidance on nurturing your parent function. While all functions within the ego are important, the development of the parent function is particularly crucial for achieving cognitive and emotional mastery. It's a pathway to a balanced, mature personality that can effectively navigate life's challenges. Because the ultimate responsibility of the ego is making sure the other sides of your mind are aligned. Developing the ego can lead to heightened consciousness and life satisfaction. A robust ego is crucial for self-awareness, emotional stability, and forming healthy relationships, contributing to a more meaningful life. And finally, we stress the importance of continuous personal growth by developing various cognitive functions within the ego. This nurturing leads to a balanced and rich life experience. In summary, this exploration of the ego and its functions reveals their profound impact on our personality, cognitive processes, and emotional well-being, highlighting the necessity of balanced development for a fulfilling life. If you would like a look into the ego specifically for each type, I recommend checking out Season 2. We have an in-depth explanation of each of the 16 types so you can get the information that pertains to you and your parent function. That's all I got for today. Catch you on the next video where we'll be talking about the subconscious side of the mind.
All right, so there's that one. Okay, so we are done with that segment. If you want to learn more about that check out that channel. I think there's a lot of insight in going beyond the purview of just the normal, regular content that you watch. Hence why I'm bringing you different views and perspectives. I personally, at this point, want to give you a bigger picture. Ultimately, my goal here, realistically, as we've talked about, pop saves lives, and that's the goal of a lot of guys in this space. I think for me, the goal is to help you live a better life now that you're still here. And if that means one day you stop clicking on Red Pill Rhino and you no longer watch it, that's just fine by me. Actually, I encourage that. If you get to a point where you don't need this content anymore, I see that as a sign of success. So on that note, I encourage it. Let's go ahead and do another quick break here really quick. Let me throw up my thing here again. We'll go ahead and take a couple minutes. Feel free to stretch, get a drink, get a snack, whatever you need to do. And we'll see you in a few minutes, okay?
They preach surrender, all will stand tall. Only still peace within, let it roar. No hiding, we're ready for war. Rise up still, fight up the ignite. Become the monster, break the chains tonight. With every struggle, we're ready to fight. No more weakness, we're roaring loud. Together we'll rise, standing strong and proud. The shadows ask you, who they'll fight. Beneath the surface, life like at night. Don't let them shackle your wildest dreams. Embrace the darkness, let it burst at the seams. Face the truth, each night triggered by your fear. Become the monster, break the chains tonight. With every struggle, we're ready to fight. No more weakness, we're roaring loud. Together we'll rise, standing strong and proud. Unleash your power, ignite your shine. Become the monster, let your spirit goodbye.
All right. Now we're on to segment 4, last segment of the show. Let's get into it. This is challenging core beliefs. Let's get started here. Your core beliefs shape everything: your actions, your relationships, your risks, your fears, and your dreams. But here's the truth, the hard truth. Most of your core beliefs weren't consciously chosen. They were absorbed, handed to you by parents, teachers, culture, trauma, heartbreak, betrayal, failure. Many were formed when we were too young or too wounded to question them. And because you accepted them without conscious review, they became the silent blueprint of your life. But a blueprint made for survival is not the same blueprint needed for thriving. Core beliefs act like invisible programs running in the background. If you believe the world is fundamentally unsafe, every opportunity looks like a trap. If you believe you're unworthy of love, I saw this in the chat today, every healthy relationship feels suspicious. If you believe success is for other people, you will subconsciously sabotage yourself every time you get close to achieving it. So this is going to be for the panel and for the chat here. I'll bring the panel back in really quick. I know a couple of them are, I don't know if they're still muted or not. We'll find out. Who or what shaped your most deeply held beliefs? Have you ever audited them? This is a big question. Chat, again, if you'd like to jump in, but definitely panel. I've got one chat here. The chat seizing isn't just your channel. I've been noticing it elsewhere. It just refresh and it repopulates. Okay. So we've got that sorted. Let's ask the question again. Who or what shaped your most deeply held beliefs? Have you ever audited them? Panel?
I don't think there is a single individual that's going to be there to be like this. I got most of my beliefs, or even a majority of the fraction of where you get your beliefs or your values and or opinions from. That's
okay.
It's from okay. I could see what the statement that you had there. A lot of it does start at infancy, where you are nothing more than just a sponge, learning how to walk and navigate through the world at your very undeveloped state. But things like you see your parents arguing, or you are in an abusive family, that has a very good chance of carrying over to your adult life and becoming that same thing too, without any kind of internal or external corrections.
Would
As
agree
an
to that.
example,
Yeah.
Life experiences. Nobody has the exact same life experience or series of experiences, which some experiences reinforce value, some of them challenge. But I think you're correct about we need to audit them every once in a while. Hopefully you are doing that internally at a consistent pace, because if a external force forces you to have reevaluation, you're put on the spot. That's inducing stress, and that is not a good environment to start doing reevaluations. Kind of similar to like how, you know, if you're going to make statements online, do it with a sober mind.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, alcohol will bring some of your suppressed personality traits to light, but they're suppressed for a reason. It's because you've acknowledged that they are not there for every scenario or every day. It needs to come out when it's supposed to, when it's appropriate, not because you chemically induced yourself into having a lack of judgment.
I would very much agree on that. I will tell you in my own experience, it says who or what most deeply, who shaped your most deeply held beliefs? Have I ever audited them? So to answer the question, let me get back to this so I can full screen. Hang on. I would say a lot of my relationships in my 20s shaped my beliefs. And when I came into the red pill, it reinforced them. Auditing them was a challenge, and I think it was a process, and I think it was a journey, part of being in this community. I would say some of the more destructive, damaging relationships I've been in led to a certain set of beliefs that were, I guess I made them for a while, absolute truths. But again, those were born of fear, not of growth. And they held me back for a long time. I think that's the whole point of this episode, right? I had to let go of them. So for me, it was past relationships. I think it's safe to say for a lot of you, it's probably the same. It's probably a lot of that trauma, betrayal, anger, sadness, all those feelings probably more than likely affected you, if not as much, maybe more, maybe less than it affected me. This is something that's going to be a hard question. And maybe nobody chooses to answer this one. Let me read the chat first. This is Alex Patino. In my case, I've noticed that the culture growing up in Mexico as a Roman Catholic in a small community, my grandparents' beliefs to this day influenced my life. Then moving to Utah at age 12, having to learn English at that age and having American values come in conflict with my Mexican heritage. Plus, even if I ignored it, I learned about Mormonism living in a small Utah community. And then joining the Army opened my eyes to a whole USA that I didn't know existed. So yeah, you kind of had your audit done by force there. Moving on to the next question really quick, and then we'll get back to the rest of the talking points here. Share a belief you inherited growing up that you later realized was completely false. This is a big one. So again, I'll read this. Share a belief you inherited growing up that you later realized was completely false. Panel, feel free to jump in. Open the chat as well.
Just work hard. Everything will fall into place for you. Go to college. Get a degree. You'll have a great job. Yeah, I followed a lot of the tenets of the old white picket fence days. It has not worked out for me. Just like this alleged white privilege, I'm waiting to receive it.
Yeah. So I think it's fair to say, ultimately, sometimes the best answers are the answers you find for yourself. And Sean put that very well. If you just follow what everybody tells you to do, if you just listen to them, and those are your core beliefs, who, and I said this earlier, who is benefiting from your belief system? If it's not you, who? We'll jump back in here. Survival beliefs serve a purpose temporarily. If you were abused, trust no one kept you alive. If you were betrayed, stay guarded protected your heart. If you grew up poor, money is evil helped you rationalize scarcity. But thriving requires a different belief system than surviving. You can't build a future if you're still living inside the rules written by your past pain. You have to confront the uncomfortable truth. The beliefs that protected you yesterday are suffocating you today. I think that's very important to take away on that one. This is going to be for chat only. Chat, if you want to jump in, feel free. What belief helped you survive a painful chapter but now limits your future? And also, how did you recognize when it was time to retire a survival belief? This is for chat only. We're going to move on from there. I will read those as I see them. Please ask the question and answer in the chat. Again, we'll do one more time. What belief helped you survive a painful chapter, but now limits your future? And how did you recognize when it was time to retire a survival belief? All right. Outdated emotional programming is subtle and dangerous. You may be a fully grown adult, but if your reactions, choices, and worldviews were formed during your most painful seasons, you're living life according to an emotional operating system written by fear, not by wisdom. Imagine using a 20-year-old GPS to navigate a city that's constantly changing. You'll miss opportunities. You'll take wrong turns. You'll stay longer than necessary. all because the map you trust is outdated. Who benefits from your brokenness? We're finally to the point I was getting to earlier. This is the harsh but necessary question. Entire industries thrive when you stay stuck. Social media algorithms feed you outrage and fear because it keeps you scrolling. Some content creators profit when you stay angry and bitter because it keeps you loyal as their audience. Does that sound familiar? Is there any content creator that you watch right now that does everything in their content to keep you angry and bitter? Is there somebody that focuses on all of the negatives all of the time and offers you no solutions, just gives you an echo chamber to feed that angerness and bitterness? If so, they benefit from your belief system, not you. And they are giving you that belief system, not you. It's time to start challenging and protecting your beliefs a little bit more. That's my takeaway for today, is that you really start guarding your belief system and checking it. And anything that doesn't match needs to be checked at the door and left outside. I have seen so many content creators who thrive, millions of views, on misleading you guys and keeping you trapped. I don't have nearly the audience that they do. I don't know if I'll reach half or even a fraction of the people they do. I ask that if this content has helped you, that you share it, that you like it, that you comment on it, of course, to feed the algorithm. Let people know this content is here so that they can watch it. Because unless we get this message out, that one, unfortunately, will drown out my message and, unfortunately, will cause a lot more harm than good in the long term for the men in our community. That's a fact. Even well-meaning communities sometimes reinforce pain because it's comfortable and profitable to stay wounded together. We've talked about that on the show too. Do you remember how many times we've mentioned in episodes crabs in a bucket? Misery loves company. If you don't know the story of crabs in a bucket, I'll refresh you really quick. Essentially, if you have a bunch of crabs and they're all in a bucket together, if one crab starts getting out, the other crab will grab it and pull it back down in. If you are staying in communities or around people or around mindsets or beliefs or philosophies that are constantly dragging you back down, they're doing you more harm than good. Now, I'm not saying it's easy to get out of the bucket, but I am telling you the alternative is death. Whether that's physical, emotional, spiritual, it is death. Now, on that note, your pain is someone else's business model. If you heal, if you grow, if you evolve beyond the need for constant outrage and validation, you break the cycle. You reclaim your freedom. So, chat, maybe panel as well, I'll bring them back in. Question number 1. Who profits if you stay broken? Who loses if you heal? Again, the question is, who profits if you stay broken? Who loses if you heal? And panel, I'll let you lead that one.
Yep.
Okay. Who profits? Let's just go back into those content creators who are doing nothing but panic fear, panic fear, panic fear. It's, I already put it in the chat, but I'll just repeat it. It is a psychological trick. It's creating excitement where there should not be any, but because of many years of psychological research that a lot of these content creators have access to, they know how to induce people to keep watching and keep coming back to you because you're providing a certain format of content that I think is worthless. All it does is panic, fear, watch my clip on this. What do they get out of it? They get advertising revenue. If they have paid subs, people will pay to see it. Maybe people will pay even more to be in the background or to get member perks. Who loses? They do if we move beyond the rage bait. They don't
And we-
have our viewership anymore. They don't have access to our finances anymore.
Yeah, and we do if we stay. Yeah.
Well, that's why I like our little group here on the internet, because the majority of us, what are we not doing? We are not telling you, hey, we need like, I know a trick that Myron has done sometimes is get the likes up. If I don't see likes going over a certain ratio, we're going to end the show now. We're going to stop it.
Mm-hmm.
It's manipulation to get analytics that are favorable to him and him only, not favorable to the viewer. It's creating what is it? Fear of missing out.
Yep.
Yeah.
Along with people who constantly push monetization. I know you mention it in your streams maybe about 2 to 3 times, and I see you've got the Cash App thing up there, but that's available. You're not telling people, go do this. Like, okay, fine. I don't have enough subs for today. We're going to stop. Oh, you don't want me to stop? Well, you better find a way to get me my subs, God damn it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that that one church in New York that closed the doors, or the ushers closed the doors, and they had to make a donation quota, I think of like $20,000 in order for them to be released, which is false imprisonment.
Mm-hmm.
The same kind of tactic is used online, not to a degree where you're being falsely imprisoned, but they will create a stressful situation that compromises your ability to think logically, because they are inducing an emotional situation. Because as logic can trump emotion, emotion can override logic.
Mm-hmm.
Overriding and trumping are two different things. Trumping something is kind of an objective thing. Overriding could be either it's objective but not really, or it's overriding your thinking processes. I mean, that's what I mean by that.
Yeah. Outlaw, is there anything you want to add to that before we jump back in?
No, he basically said what I was going to say about the Marvin Sapp church closed the doors.
Right.
You know, when somebody reaches a point where they're selfish, and you know, that's why I have no patience or no use for dating coaches or grifters, because you know, at the end of the day, when they prioritize money on this platform, they put it ahead of everything else. They prioritize it, you know, and they understand the very fundamental, you know, fact that you're not going to make that unless you have people willing to buy into your shit to give you that. So it's usury. It's abuse of trust, you know, abuse of confidence. That's why I have no patience for those types of people. You know, there's a fine line between understanding that, you know, if you do something on the internet, you know, that's just a very, very fine line. That, you know, what is your time worth type thing. You know, how much do you want to invest in this before you start thinking about wanting compensation, which again, I'm not, but you know, it's something that a lot of people have done, you know.
Yeah.
where does it end and where does it begin? Where's the fine line at where it's like you're no longer doing it for your passion or the message, you're doing it for just benefit, financial benefit, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. And it's unfortunate that it still is very much a big component of this community. I'm going to jump in here. We've got a lengthy section to get through, and I want to get through it because we are at the 3 hour and 17-minute mark, and it's time to close. The dopamine trap. This is our next topic. Feeling seen is not the same as being healed. Outrage feels good temporarily. Validation feels good temporarily. Memes, rants, reaction videos, they spike your dopamine, but they rarely build anything lasting. If you consume that content that constantly reinforces your anger, fear, or hopelessness without pushing you toward action, reflection, or growth, then you're not healing. And that's the bottom line. You're not healing. So if you're stuck in the trap of watching the content, again, I'm not going to name names. I could. Most of you are going to walk away from this if you actually watched it all the way through. You're going to know who I'm talking about. There are channels in this community dedicated to nothing but monetizing your pain. And I mean, at times, I don't think I ever intentionally did it, but I fed into the trap as well. There's topics I was looking last night, and they don't align with my current views. And if I sell those ideas to you, and you guys internalize them and they become black and white for you, I'm selling you short of things you may be missing out on. And I don't want to do that. That was never my intention. That's not my belief here. And that's not what I want to do at all. So we don't have as many videos lately. You guys probably think I've checked out. You know, till now, here I am again. I told you guys in the last episode, I may not do as many shows, but when I do shows, they're going to be like this. They're long form, they're informative, they're a deep dive. There's not going to be any more of this reaction nonsense. There's not going to be any more of this panel debauchery where it carries on for 5 hours and it's not meaningful. We're done with that. We're past that. It was fun. It had its purpose. I think the channel couldn't have grown and developed without it. Certainly couldn't have built the community without it. But there comes a time where we need to put away childish things. And I'm at that point. That doesn't mean we can't have fun. Doesn't mean occasionally I might not still do a Bigfoot video or something, or comment on some current event that gets me spun up. I know you guys enjoy that content, but my focus here is not so much about the content, it's about the quality going forward, which is why you're seeing a lot fewer shows. It took me 2 weeks to develop this episode. 2 full weeks. First was the concept, then was outlining, then was putting it together, then was this actually was discussed. I actually talked to my mentor. We went back and forth about all these talking points, added, tweaked them, took some things out, added more detail where necessary. And then finally it came to the script, which we didn't used to do. And it came to everything else that goes along with that, the sources and so on. So if I'm going to do a show for you guys, I'm not going to do it because I need 5 hours twice a week to get to so many views to get monetized again. They demonetized me, and at this point, I don't really want it or need it. If you guys want to donate, it's up in the corner here. All you got to do is point your phone at that. Boom, you can send some money over to help keep the lights on, keep the camera running, and keep the show live. Other than that, I don't need it. You know what I mean? And that shouldn't be the purpose of the show either. I shouldn't be pushing through, shoveling shit in the algorithm just so you guys see the show. I do want you guys to share the show. I want you to drop it in somebody's messenger if you think they need it. Send it to a friend, send it to a family member. That's all I want. All right, let's move on. The emotional anchor effect. Your most likely deeply held limiting beliefs are almost always anchored to a specific emotional event. The first betrayal, the moment you realize someone you loved would never change. You can think of examples like this, whether they're a compulsive liar, they have an addiction to alcohol or other things, they have anger issues, whatever it is, and you realized, yeah, no, they're never going to change, right? The day you were humiliated, abandoned, or underestimated. Some of you know that very well. At least I know one of them. Maybe all of them are all the same. They're very different things, but let's talk about it. If you've been in a relationship and they left you or cheated on you or replaced you, monkey branched to someone else, you probably felt all three of those: humiliated, underestimated, and abandoned. And that goes back to creating that anchor. That becomes your belief system. If you don't return those moments and reframe them, they will continue to define your entire life. The event wasn't your fault, but keeping the chain tied to it, that's now your responsibility to break. No one can do that for you. Of course, I mentioned professional help. If a therapist is something you think you need, I encourage you to do so. But I need you to know this wasn't your fault. What this person did to you, what these people did to you, is not your fault. Unfortunately, though, it is your responsibility and your responsibility alone to work through that and get past that. No one else can do that for you. And I know that's a tall order, but it is much better than living a comfortable lie or limiting yourself from potential growth. Or, for that matter, being happy. As an example I gave you earlier, some of my past experiences would have limited me from a happy, healthy relationship. Would have turned me completely around to it. Would have automatically had me check off boxes that said nope, 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 and nope. Because you don't match this, this, and this, and you have this, this, and this. Therefore, based on this, this, and this, you're a terrible person. And that's not reality. All that was is holding on to past beliefs that are no longer valuable to me. So that's something that you're going to have to work on. And I strongly encourage you to do so. This is for chat only. You don't have to answer this. This is something you might want to write down. You might want to think about later. If you're comfortable answering it, please do so. What painful memory still secretly dictates your core beliefs today? That's question one. Question two, have you ever traced a self-limiting belief back to a childhood trauma or event? Again, you don't have to answer these in the chat. Just think about them. Conscious reconstruction. It's not enough to tear down old beliefs. You have to build new ones, brick by brick. Beliefs like, I can protect myself and be open to love. Can you? I can stay discerning without staying bitter. I can create a future better than my past. I am not what happened to me. I am who I choose to become next. All of these things are true. But to the first one, I can protect myself and be open to love. Unless you heal from your trauma. That's why I said, can you? Because if you hold on to the beliefs that you've learned from our community and just those beliefs alone, I don't think you can. I think you have to be willing and open enough to question those things. Because it's protect yourself, yes, but don't hold yourself back either. And then the last one, again, very important. I am not what happened to me. I am who I choose to become next. Maybe you made some bad choices, or maybe you went through some terrible events, right? That doesn't define you, and that's not who you are. That was a part of your life, whether it was a difficult time, a hard lesson, or a traumatic event. It doesn't define you. It isn't you. It is an experience. It is a memory. It is an event on your journey. But the best part about journeys is they are not the destination, as I've been saying the entire show. And you can choose to recover from them. You get to be the architect of your belief system now, not the wounded child, not the betrayed partner, not the broken soldier, you. Audience, if you could rebuild one core belief today, what would you want to believe instead? We're going to give you a narrative here. Say this is John. We don't know John. We don't know that John is real, but John grew up poor, hearing from his parents that rich people are greedy. As an adult, every time John started earning more, he sabotaged himself, quitting jobs, blowing opportunities, because he subconsciously associated success with corruption. After deep self-reflection and therapy, John challenged that belief. He rebuilt it. Money is a tool. It reflects the character of the person using it. Today, John runs a successful business, provides for his family, and donates heavily to charity without guilt. He didn't just change his bank account, he changed his blueprint. When you challenge your beliefs, you change your destiny. So what about your story? What happened to you? You don't have to answer this again in the chat or on the panel or anything. But what happened to you that made you believe a certain thing? Maybe it was, I was put through this, or I did this, or I'm not worthy of love. Have you started to reframe that? Have you taken the time to reconstruct that? Or are you holding on to beliefs that no longer serve you? I think it's very important that you take the time to reflect on that. And like we talked about earlier, audit yourself. I'm going to jump back into the panel here and let them discuss openly. And I'm going to bring up the next segment, which is our closing. It's very brief, but let's get the panel back in the meantime. Gentlemen, what would you like to add to those points?
Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I don't think I can really add too much on it off the top of my head.
All right. Outlaw, you?
I'm about the same.
Okay. Well, on that note, you have reached the end of the show. 3 hours, 29 minutes, and 19 seconds. Of course, I had to read the seconds. We're going to end the show here in a second. I'm just waiting for some things to boot up here in the background. Let's do how to challenge your own beliefs, and we'll go to closing. This video is by Mark Manson. I am going to put it up on screen. We'll just play it through, and we'll see you on the other side, and then close down the show.
All right, if you've made it this far, congratulations. If you've made it this far and haven't thrown your computer across the room or sent me an angry email or canceled your subscription and told me I was a fuckface on Twitter, thank you, by the way, for not doing that. If you've made it this far, you have successfully challenged your belief, investigated counterarguments, looked at opposing data. You've thought of it in terms of probabilities and trade-offs, which is just honestly a better way to look at everything, in my opinion. And you've thought very hard about the identity and validation and emotional stability you derive from the belief and questioned whether it was worth it or not. So that's it. That's the course. Did you change your mind? I don't fucking care. Did you not change your mind? Don't fucking care. Was it useful? I mean, it should have been useful. I do care about that, but that's it. I mean, you probably should have figured out by now that pretty much every course in this school is like improperly named. This is not about changing your beliefs. It's about updating, improving your beliefs, having better beliefs, having higher resolution beliefs, having more nuanced beliefs, having a better understanding of your beliefs and why you have those beliefs. This is how changing beliefs actually happens. It's very, very rare to like come across an experience or a piece of information in your life that completely makes you do a 180 on one of your beliefs. It's very rare. It almost never happens. And if it does happen, it's usually an extreme event like 9/11 or the pandemic or something like that. It needs to be something very, very major to change your worldview in a significant way. Most of the time, the way our beliefs change is that they are gradually altered, opened up, little holes poked here. Your mind's changed by a little detail there. You read a book that makes you consider something you didn't quite consider before. So you update your prior belief a little bit and you kind of pivot a little bit. Maybe it's 10% more in this direction instead of that direction. And things just gradually open up more and more. And then you suddenly find yourself not only being open to counter arguments, but actually kind of empathizing and understanding counter arguments in a way that you never did before. And boom, one day you just realize you're like, oh, I don't believe that old thing anymore, or at least not as much as I used to. Like I'm not like a zealot about it like I used to be. Belief changes are gradual. They tend to be long term and they tend to be nuanced. It tends to be. It's not that you go from like hardcore socialist to hardcore capitalist in a week. And you go from like 100% to 100%, it's like there's like a very gradual process that happens, and you start to understand like, okay, well maybe in those sectors of the economy, a market system makes more sense, and maybe if these certain conditions are true, then socialism would fail. And yeah, maybe I'm only partially on board with this because now I believe that. And I never understood that before. It's a very open-ended, messy process that happens. And the problem is that our short dialogues online, you don't get to express all that nuance and messiness that is going on inside of our heads. Because look, like the better you get at this, the better you get at poking at beliefs, questioning beliefs, thinking of beliefs in terms of probabilities rather than absolutes, the better you get at thinking of things in terms of trade-offs, you start to notice something, which is that pretty much all your beliefs are held pretty lightly. It's interesting, I started blogging in 2008. And originally I was just blogging about my own life. Like I wasn't really giving any advice or telling people what to do or anything. But because I was writing about my own life, people started emailing me, asking me questions, asking me, what would I do in this situation? What would I do in that situation? And that's when I really started to study psychology and relationships and emotions and all these things, just so that like I could fucking answer these people, that I would like actually know what I was talking about. And it's funny because very early in my career, I used to make extremely bold statements. Like I'd go read one book about emotional attachment, and then I would come back to my blog and I would write this like super strong-fisted declaration of like how relationships are supposed to be. And then a couple of years go by and I start interacting with more and more people and I hear different stories and I'm exposed to different cultures, people all over the world, start talking to people older than me, and I started having more experiences myself, and suddenly I start realizing like, maybe I should like lighten up a little bit on that statement. Maybe we revise that one, cut out a couple of those sentences and write in some caveats, put in some parentheticals, make it clear that sometimes this stuff is personal and you can't just make one grand declaration. Then a couple more years went by and I started to really understand that, wow, most of this stuff is so individual. It's almost impossible to make single grand declarations that are not highly abstract and philosophical. And then these days, I've basically come to accept that I have no fucking clue what's going on. And it's funny because I've been studying this subject for 13 years, and the more I study, the more lightly I hold my beliefs, the more easily my beliefs change when new data and evidence arises, or actually, let's be honest, when we find out that that study everybody referenced from 20 years ago was bullshit. These days, I actually, it's very difficult for me to come out and make a really strong declaration. And what you have probably noticed in this school is that each course is very much about a fundamental principle, either psychological principle or philosophical principle, that is quite timeless, that's been around for hundreds or thousands of years, and is widely applicable. There's no course here on the 10 best things to text somebody you think is cute. Like we're talking about resilience, we're talking about boundaries and relationships, we're talking about managing emotions. Like these things have not changed over thousands of years, and so it's kind of the only things that I've found that I can rely upon. It's like, okay, this rug's not going to get pulled out from under me like a lot of the recent psych research has been having. So all of this is to say is that the more you understand things, the more you go use these tools and go through these processes and reevaluate the things that you believe, you're going to find that you're going to have fewer and fewer beliefs. You're going to have fewer and fewer strong opinions. And that's great. that just opens you up even more and creates even more space for you to learn and grow and understand people. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. It's basically training yourself to become comfortable with uncertainty. There's a famous quote from Socrates where he says, "The wise man knows that the only thing he knows is nothing." I think what he's kind of describing there is this process, is that like the more you learn and the more experienced you get, the less willing you are to make strong statements about anything. And I think that's great. I think we need more of that in this world. I think we need more uncertainty. I think we need more comfort with that uncertainty and more comfort with being uncertain with our own beliefs. So hopefully you've loosened yourself up throughout this course. You're experiencing more mental flexibility. And I will say, if some strong emotional reactions came up, or if you're suddenly find yourself very, very nervous to talk about these things with other people in your life, I would check out the Healthy Relationships course. I would check out the Managing Emotions course, because again, beliefs often get tied up into aspects of our identity that affect self-esteem and relationships. So the last exercise is I simply want you to write down, has your belief shifted at all? I want you to look back at the beginning of the workbook, look at the belief you wrote down, and then write down what you believe now and just compare the two. See, has it shifted? Has it changed? Has it opened up more? Has it become more nuanced, more detailed? Or are you more certain than ever before? In which case, great. At least now you've exposed yourself to the counter arguments. Hopefully you've gotten a lot from the course. This is absolutely a course to do again and again, because we all have no shortage of dumb beliefs that we struggle to let go of or to reconsider. So I hope to see you here again. And until next time, this is Manson.
All right, now we'll close this down. Let's get into the chat really quick. That is a gentleman, if you're interested, go back and look more into. I think you may find some use in that as well. Obviously, our discussion was different, but it holds true to what he's talking about as well in courses. All right, here we go. Shinobi 1. When a young man gets into women relationship trouble, he will seek answers. A shame the answers he will get are from PUA, pickup artists, roaches, and coaches behind paywalls. New Age Jerry Springer garbage he adds. He also adds, the blue pillar asking yourself, what did I do wrong? The red pillar states, nothing. Yeah. Shinobi 1, 2020 bioweapon affects my current day's behavior. I will trust no one. All right. And then we go back to Riggs Jr. here. This is just my opinion, but saying only chat is shutting yourself off. Saying only chat reply is shutting yourself off from 50% of your possible information sources. Yes, some of them are panels, some of them are chat only. It just depends on the topic. But yes, I get your point there. But we'd be on for 5 hours if I did that every time. All right. Just making sure I got through all the chats that were related. Yeah, we're caught up. If you like this show, like I said, please like, subscribe. Consider using this magical box here or going down in the comments. We do have PayPal. We do have Cash App. Of course, you can email me, reach out to me personally at redpillrhino at hotmail.com. I know, super sophisticated stuff there using Hotmail in 2025. Also, you can find more of the channels where we're at on redpillrhino.com. And if you like more content like this, please leave a comment below. Obviously, some of you aren't going to be seeing this live, so please leave a comment. If you like the episode, if you like what we're doing, please let me know, because I'd like to know that I'm actually making a difference here. All right, let's go ahead and close this out. Today wasn't about tearing down who you are. It was about uncovering who you could become, about stepping beyond the boundaries you didn't even realize were there, the boundaries of comfort, overconfidence, ego, and inherited beliefs. The truth is, you are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not the hand you were dealt. You are the player, not the cards. But to change the game, you have to first question the rules you've been taught to play by. The first step isn't the easiest. It's actually often the most painful, the most confusing, and the most lonely. Because it demands that you stand at the edge of what you've always been and decide if you're willing to step into who you were always meant to become. And that's the power of awakening. Not anger, not outrage, not blame, but ownership. Ownership of your mind, ownership of your heart, and most importantly, ownership of your future. Today we talked about a lot of things. Like I said, feel free to share this with friends, rewatch it if necessary. Some of the key takeaways from today. Comfort is the death of change. If you feel safe but stagnant, it's time to move on. Certainty is a false god. If you stop questioning, you stop evolving. Ego is the mask that blocks the mirror. Let go of defending and start observing. Your beliefs were inherited. You didn't choose most of them. It's time to choose them consciously. Listen. I don't want you to just listen today to the show that we had here. I want you to reflect. Write down your key takeaways. Debate it with your friends. Debate it on other shows you're on. If you find yourself in a position where something from today comes up in another show, question it. A lot of you guys are on panels on other shows. Fight yourself if you have to. Tear it all down if that's what it takes to build something better. Remember, this wasn't just a live stream. This was your first step. Thank you for tuning in today. I really appreciate you guys coming on and staying until the end. I will do a little backstage. I'll put up the link to join if you guys would like to join. We'll chat briefly. I do have some other things I need to get to today. It is my only day off for a minute. So I want to actually do some things in the personal life here. But I really appreciate you guys sticking through to the end. We made it 3 hours and 44 minutes to the close of this. A little bit long-winded, but definitely worth it if you stuck around. Thank you for subscribing. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and again, share the show. I will catch you guys next time. And I hope that this gave you something to think about and there's something you took from this that'll ultimately benefit your life going forward. Until next time, I'll see you guys later. Have a great day.
We are the arbiters of this society.
Repeat after me. As a good citizen, we must maintain a neutral carbon footprint. Repeat after me. We must eat the bugs. Repeat after me. We must eat the bugs. Repeat.
This is a world that we create and manage. The people, they need to be controlled. We will give them truths, but only our truths. They are not to seek information anywhere else.
It is my job to keep order. So what you saw didn't happen. Erase everything.
You a grunt? I used to be one, and I was good at it.
I know. Things were simpler then. I have some questions.
You need to understand, We're being hunted.
By who?
Bring him to me.
This breaks the world.
Your story isn't over yet. There's still a page left.
Yeah. Sometimes I get so mad, there's no controlling me. My thoughts get so bad, I'm like, I might grab a bat, I don't know. My wrath, my blood boils over like, oh God, here goes. I lost all feeling from my head to my toes. You said some shit that I can't let go, so just stay tuned for the rest of the show. So have you ever felt betrayed? Switches how you see things, realize something needs change. Cause I know you got me up, let me show you what's up. Cause enough is enough. I'll take a face full of pavement just to make a statement. I know there's no turning back. Oh God, adrenaline wasted, so mad I can taste it. I know there's no turning back. I'll do what it takes, I ain't making mistakes like that. I'll bleed on your face to make you go take it back. I'll lose my shit, I go crazy when I'm mad. And now you go wish you shut the fuck up real bad. And now that I'm gone, yeah, I know there's no turning back. And now that I'm gone, yeah, I know there's no turning back. I'll take smoke, I'ma poke a hole through you, choking's overdue. Come at me and you won't get any older, dude. Crack your holder too. Heating up inside of me, blood so violently. Thanks for trying me. Now it's finally time to see how this rivalry becomes a dynasty.